Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville. Mr. Clerk, do we have any regrets?
We do not.
All right. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Mr. Clerk, I see none. Council, would two of us like to move and second approval of the minutes of the regular session of the Planning and Development Session of Council, December 8th? Councillor McNeese and Councillor Dudek, thank you. Any objection? Mr. Clerk, there's no objection, so that's adopted. Now, Council, I would like to move the confidential consent item to the end of the meeting, and I will advise staff that we're going to go into camera on that. That's why I'm moving it. And then I'd like to pull forward item 8.3 because Councillor Elgar and Councillor Longo would like to move a motion to defer that. Councillor Elgar or Councillor Longo?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Burton. Yes, I would ask if we could have council to refer it just for one cycle. And it's not that we want major changes to the official plan. It's because there's a little bit of a mix-up between people knowing there was a meeting tonight but didn't know there was any staff report tonight. And we just want to clear up any discrepancies and maybe tighten up a few things in wording so that when it does go to site plan. So that's, I would like to ask for the support on that, please.
Well, Councillor, would you please specify the changes that you're deferring this for?
It's about a page and a half, so I will send that to staff.
Well, for the public and council, could you tell us at least what the items are?
Okay, yep, okay. I'd like to be very clear and measurable screening requirements through the site plan, minimum planting specs, fence berms, standard heights, light cutoffs, and winter landscape plan. The zoning proposed a 21-meter maximum height, but it does not include the dome final reaching higher. And I think we can explain a little better to the public what that is. It's not a large mass, but it is a mass. The residents want a visual impact for the key edges of Kelsegate, and then it goes on through to Barronwood. You've got headlights into homes concerned about light spill from the parking lot, lighting, snow storage, privacy concerns at edges.
And you don't want any changes?
Not to the official plan, but to make sure the wording is very strong when it is approved to go to site plan.
Councillor, I think staff need to know what it is we're asking them to do. Can you be more specific?
That's why I was giving them all of the, make sure the wording is tight. So some of the things we're doing here, I don't want to have them also repeated in Midtown and other areas, growth areas, and MTSAs. And it has to do with parking because we are changing a lot of parking here, and it's a one-off, and I understand that.
Is this an MTSA?
Pardon?
What is?
Oh, no. What we do here, the development industry could use in other places, and so we have already set a precedent. And I want wording so that it's very specific for this area only.
Do you know what wording you want?
I can provide that. I will. I don't have it with me tonight, but I will send that off to staff, yes.
But if council's going to vote for wording, they need to know what the wording is.
Well, okay. Well, maybe we should drag her out to the end of the meeting and have come up with all the wording. I'm sure I can find it somewhere. I've got a lot of information here. So if everybody wants to sit through a few hours of me reading,
Councillor, all we want to know is what you want done.
I have already talked to staff about what I want done, and they say yes, that's good. They don't have a problem with it. I have also talked to Len and Ms. Victor, who are representing, and they have looked at it, and they have no problems with what we're holding it about one cycle for.
Well, then could you write your motion to defer so that we know exactly what we're doing?
Sure.
We'll take a second.
I'm going to ask staff to help me. I don't want to get the wording right, sir. And they know what I want to do.
All right, I'm happy to have that happen.
Very good.
Take a 5-minute recess.
No, let's see if the director has any advice about that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We can certainly work with the councillor to come up with some wording that would be suitable for deferral to the next cycle.
Will that take you more than 5 minutes?
No, sir.
Then we will wait for 5 minutes for this because the councillor has trained me over the years. We have to get it right. Councillor Hazlefield.
Mayor Burton, when we've deferred items before or referred them back, when we deferred them back, we've just asked that they be deferred back for one cycle, and there hasn't been a lot of words that had to be added to that. So are we doing it differently now?
In my mind, I'm hearing that I heard first they were deferring it one cycle, but we didn't want to make any changes. It's already the application has already passed its due date for passage. So if we're delaying it for a cycle, it seemed to me we ought to know what we're trying to achieve with that. And a motion is a good place to put that down. When we defer something I'm not sure there's a comparable here, Councillor.
I guess we'll wait patiently.
Councillor Adams.
I just wanted to add, we've done lots of other referrals or deferrals back to staff, and every time we've included wording to the effect of referral to staff for the purpose of reviewing the height, reviewing the parking, reviewing the whatever it might be. And we've been pretty explicit about it, and I see no reason why we wouldn't be explicit about it here. So asking for it to be in writing seems quite reasonable to me.
It's actually in your procedure bylaw that you're supposed to write your motions out.
Mayor Burton, maybe one of the bigger things I'm more concerned about is, not only the other which I've gone through with staff, but the report notes that urban centers policies generally don't permit surface parking in front or between buildings. But the OPA would add a site-specific permission to allow when it is screened. And that's what I want in there. That might be a change to the official plan, but that's what it really shows up in the site plan. That's where it shows up. And that was what you want to approve, because we got a lot of townhouses to the south and to the west of that location.
Councillor, I'm not aware that we're approving site plan.
But you can be very specific when you come back and you have it specified so there is no misunderstanding.
Councillor, I'm inclined to support you. I just want to know what I'm supporting. And I don't think it's asking too much to write it down. By now, I believe the staff may even have something for us.
Okay.
No pressure.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Mayor. If I could, draft wording, and certainly subject to any editorial comments, please provide, that item 8.3 be deferred until 17th of February 2026 to ensure matters related to site plan approval can be addressed. These matters are to include appropriate screening for noise, such as vehicle movement, idling, headlights from vehicles, light spill from parking lot lighting, snow storage locations and meltwater impacts, and privacy concerns. If there's anything further to include in that motion, happy to take that advice.
Councillor, anything else?
That will be fine.
That's fine. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do you have what you need?
I just need the.
I think he will. All right. I'll call the vote. Is there any objection to the deferral? Congratulations, Councillor. Your motion passes. All right, Council, we have 3 public hearing items. The first is the public meeting report on the Downtown Oakville Heritage Conservation District Review. We have no delegation listed on this. I will ask the public if there's anyone here who wants to share information on it. And if you give your attention to Kristen McLaughlin or ask any questions of Kristen McLaughlin and Kirk Bigger, we will proceed to the item. Ms. McLaughlin, Council? I wasn't promising that there's a presentation. I was just saying that,
Oh, I have one.
all right.
All right. Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you, Mayor Burton and members of council. The purpose of this report and presentation is to share the work done in 2025 through our Downtown Oakville Heritage Conservation District review and to gather feedback from the public and council. The report is item 7.1 on tonight's agenda. A data-driven, regular review process of a heritage conservation district is a process that staff have developed through Section 6 of the current Downtown Oakville HCD plan and guidelines. This is the guiding policy document for our HCD downtown. The Ontario Heritage Act requires a statutory public meeting for the creation of a new HCD. However, there is no legal requirement under the Act for reviews or updates to active districts. Therefore, staff are bringing our review item forward for this public meeting as best practice for public engagement. Tonight, I will be going over the purpose of the district and this project, the project components and project results, and no decisions are to be made at this time. So a heritage conservation district is a geographically defined area with distinct heritage character and is protected by municipal bylaw under the Ontario Heritage Act. A study for such a district was done downtown in 2012, with the HCD plan and guidelines implemented in 2013. The core purpose of an HCD is to help conserve the heritage character of an area while managing growth and change. In Oakville, this is done through our heritage permit process, our heritage grant program, and the plan and guidelines document. This document outlines district objectives and policies and guidance on maintenance and repair of existing buildings, as well as guidance on new construction, sympathetic additions, and guidance for conservation of landscapes. Property owners, staff, architects, developers, etc., should be referring to this document when planning any changes to a property in an HCD. In terms of the review project, this actually started with the implementation of these plan and guidelines in 2013, when a new section, or Section 6, was introduced to plan for more regular, data-driven reviews of how our heritage conservation districts operate. Currently, HCD review timelines are decided by municipality, as again, there is no provincial legislation on reviewing HCDs. Some municipalities include sections in their plan and guidelines, such as in this case, while others only review districts based on external pressures, such as changing legislation or changing heritage conservation practices. Currently, HCDs are most often in the province updated infrequently, sometimes after 20 or 30 years, leaving staff to use outdated policy for extended periods of time. So Town of Oakville staff are being proactive in implementing a more regular, small-scale review process for our districts. And again, we are doing this through incorporating sections in all our plan and guidelines moving forward on reviews. This allows staff to more consistently address gaps and changing priorities and more regularly connect with the community on their needs and expectations. More simply put, the core purpose of this review project is to confirm that these plan and guideline documents work well to maintain district operations for the public and using best heritage conservation practices. In terms of downtown, we have 15 core objectives in our plan and guidelines. So this project was multifaceted, and I've just listed here on the left the elements from Section 6 of the plan and guidelines and what it calls for. It recommends for formal public engagement, analysis of heritage funding and permits, and development of a scorecard to score basically every objective in the plan and guidelines, and then these scores can be used to determine any revisions that may be necessary. As discussed in more detail in the report, staff have followed these recommendations. We began our public component in June of 2025, where we had an online survey for the project, and then we hosted a public information meeting in August. A public webpage with frequent updates has also been available through the project, and we have been receiving written-in comments in this timeline. In the fall, data analysis was conducted, not only on heritage permit and grant activity, but also on data from different departments and site visits, as well as public responses to survey and written-in comments. This data was then used to score each of the objectives, and using this developed scorecard, we aim to adapt and use it for all of our future reviews as well. After scoring these objectives, the data was used to revise the plan and guidelines. This time around, an added element that is not part of a regular review process is updating the inventory sheets for each property in the district. So in 2022, there were some changes through Bill 23 for what constitutes a heritage conservation district. So staff felt this was the right time to just make sure that these still fell in line with changed legislation. All right. So on that note, I will now be going over the review results. These can generally be split into 3 categories. So our data assessment, are the objectives being achieved? Draft revisions to the plan and guidelines, what can be clarified or updated to make sure this document still works for the HCD? And the draft revisions to the inventory sheets, which help to determine that all the building categories are still accurate, as well as the district boundaries. In terms of the data assessment, after a cross-analysis of 12 years of data, this review has found that the plan and guidelines are operating overall well. It is achieving using the developed scorecard rubric, it is achieving a higher end partially achieved score of 77%, with 80% and above being fully achieved for the overall document. And again, these are ongoing objectives. So 10 are currently being fully achieved, 4 partially, and 1 not quite achieved. The plan and guidelines perform well in maintaining heritage streetscapes and built form, but there are opportunities, as noted here in operational conclusions, for improvements tied to heritage funding, the grant program and permits, and making sure that that is promoted more in the district and with property owners and tenants. And for reviews moving forward, we do recommend keeping to this small scale review process in a timeline of around a suggested timeline of 5 to 8 years. This allows for data to accumulate and to demonstrate trends for analysis. So this data collection and analysis also helped us in drafting revisions to the actual plan and guidelines document. This review found that in several instances, this document could be refined and clarified in several areas. I've got some charts up here on slides, but generally I will just go over these revision drafts, I should say. A lot of it was updating heritage terminology and definitions. So for example, changing historic and non-historic to contributing and non-contributing, which falls in line with the rest of our district plans. Adding clear definitions of what constitutes a heritage permit, how to use the plan, how it is enforced, and incorporating details from projects such as the Downtown Streetscape Project from 2019, and making sure that legislation and bylaw references were up to date. I will note, just briefly, that materials provided in advance for these draft revisions are missing one section, section 1, which is the introduction to the guidelines due to an error while compiling the document. So I've included the draft changes summaries here in this slide, and the pages themselves are in this presentation at the end, in case anyone wants to review them, and so they are available through meeting minutes. But just so everyone knows about these changes, they focus on this section on process clarification for users of the document. So this basically is just summarizing what an HCD is, what a heritage permit is, when it is required, and a chart on how to use the document. So these new sections make it consistent with the old Oakville HCD. And again, because this statutory public meeting is not required under the Heritage Act, but undertaken as best practice for public engagement, this missing information will be updated on our project webpage tomorrow so that it is accessible to the public well in advance of any recommendation. And then in terms of the rest of the draft reviews, the most revisions were done to section 4, which is the guidelines for managing change, which is actually what users refer to when wanting to make changes to their property. And these updates were made just to make sure that it was consistent across typologies. Downtown has a large variety of building types and building stock, and so staff needed to make sure that these were consistent, as they were a little confusing before. And the final result topic is, again, those 2012 inventory sheets. This will not be done as part of every review process, but it is to fall in line with Bill 23 changes. Those changes are that there's 2 main points, that 2 or more criteria from Ontario 906 regulation have to be met to be a contributing property, and that 25% of buildings in the HCD have to meet 2 or more. And so staff just went through the inventory sheets, updated it with the correct criteria, and found that no property type change. They're all still contributing or non-contributing. Those did not change. And there is no change in the boundary. And again, that minimum 25%, we exceed it with 72% of properties in the district considered contributing. So in summary, this review has found that since 2013, the plan and guidelines are working well in maintaining the heritage character of the district and meeting most of its objectives at 77%. Minor revisions were needed to the plan and guidelines, mostly for clarification and organization, to make it clearer for users. And the 2012 study inventory sheets this time around were updated with that 906 criteria and determined that the district boundaries remain accurate. In terms of next steps, again, the public meeting today is best practice. We hope to get any feedback that anyone may have on this review. We will be taking this back to Heritage Oakville, hopefully in February, for their feedback as well, and then a recommendation after that. So today, just to summarize, or just to end it on staff recommendation, staff recommends that this report be received and that comments from the public with respect to Appendix B and C be received, and that staff considers such comments as may be provided by council. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Councillor Giddings will oblige you with at least one question. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great read, a long read, but loved the information and the pictures and the transformations that were shown. Read with interest that we are going above and beyond what is required in terms of regular reviews. Like to see that. The only question I have is for the promotion of a gateway feature at Lakeshore and Navy.
Through you, Mayor Burton, to the councillor, are you just wondering more details about it being missing, or?
Thoughts as to design, looks, timing,
Right.
budget requirements?
Okay, so this was initially, this gateway feature objective, I believe, was part of a bigger strategy, the Downtown Oakville Cultural Hub Initiative, I think, study, something like that. And I don't know if it ever got to a design phase or anything like that. We have been, as part of this review, staff did reach out to facilities in talks about any changes that may come up to Centennial Square and discussed about if anything happens on that intersection, incorporating the gateway feature from this objective as part of that. And so that has received positive feedback, and so that's kind of where it's standing right now. In terms of design or what that would look like, that would be happening at that point, with a heritage permit and working with facilities as well. But that's currently where it is, so it's on that positive trajectory, I would say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Councillor Elgar.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mayor Burton. Thanks for the presentation. Wording I always am interested in. You've gone from historic and non-historic to contributing and non-contributing. Does non-contributing, could it have any impact at all on further making it non-historic, and all of a sudden you're able to tear it down and build other buildings? Why the change in the naming?
Through you, Mayor Burton, to the councillor. The change was mostly done to keep it consistent with our other Heritage Conservation District, plan and guidelines, which all use the terms contributing and non-contributing. I don't know when that origin was. I believe just the term historic and non-historic are maybe a bit too confining, because there are heritage elements or heritage properties that may not be necessarily very old and yet may still contribute to that heritage character. So I believe that is one instance of why those words have changed. In terms of it, it doesn't change the district policy in that you can't demolish. You have to still follow the process for it, whether it's non-contributing and non-historic. They still follow notice of intention to designate has to be issued. There is a heritage impact assessment has to be done because it is still part of the district and it is still designated. So it's just a change in terminology, but not in process, if that answers you. Okay.
The other one that kind of bothers me is the wording. Flexible growth, it's often seen as a planning language signal that there may be more leniency going forward. Why is that in there, flexible growth?
I would say that the Downtown Heritage Conservation District is unique compared to our other districts and was designed through the plan and guidelines to be more flexible than the others based on the unique needs of businesses in heritage districts. And we wanted to make sure that their needs are maintained through the plan and guidelines while still working to maintain those heritage elements. So it is, by design, a more flexible plan and guidelines document than our others, and I believe that's why that word is used.
Okay, I don't like it, but I guess it's there. The other thing, planning, many departments, it seems like we're opening it up to transportation, engineering, roads and works, legal, forestry, parks, et cetera. Does that water things down the more than what would be normal when you have that many different groups have different interests?
By listing those departments, it's more so at the stage when we've already made our recommended draft revisions and are asking for any small input they may have, only because the district is made of many elements, and we do have staff that all the staff from all of those departments do work in those district guidelines. They are, supposed to be applying for heritage permits. They do have to refer to the document, so we want them to be aware of any changes in case it affects them. I'm happy to take their feedback, but it's also to make them aware of changes.
Okay, I appreciate that. The one thing I notice is you realize there's more has to be done because we haven't met the 80% threshold yet. But I note you met there's no financial considerations listed at this time. Should we be adding more to this area? Heritage is important in Oakville. Like, should we be why we say no funding is being currently anticipated? No additional funding.
Are you referring to like the grant program or increasing that?
No, I'm just talking
or
about staff too.
in general. I don't know if I can speak necessarily to financial considerations. I don't know if maybe my manager would like to touch on that one. He may have more information.
Sorry about that.
Thanks, Kristen. Through you, Mayor Burton. That's, I believe, a question regarding the considerations at the end of the staff report. So adopting or endorsing the recommendation will not have any financial implications. If there's desire to add funding to heritage programs in the town of Oakville, then we have a budget process for that, and we have a grant program, for example, where we could use for additional funding there. So that's a separate process, and we can certainly look at that.
Okay. So I noticed so far as public engagement, we've only had one survey and one meeting at this point with the public. Is that correct?
Yes.
And there's more anticipated going forward, though, before any of this is finalized?
Well, we also have this statutory public meeting where formal notice was given to all property owners and those in the district. The intention of the review process is not to be quite the same as the large updates council may be more familiar with that you've seen through 1st and 2nd Street and Old Oakville, because those were updated after 30 or 40 years. So by doing the regular review process, we do intend to keep it a more efficient process. This was started in June. We finished with revisions by November, and in both public engagement instances, there was no pushback or questions about process or anything like that. It was quite positive interactions, and so it is our first time doing it in this way. In this case, it seemed to be an adequate amount of public engagement, but again, it is our first time doing it, and happy to take feedback if further public engagement is an item you'd want us to investigate. I'm happy to do that.
Well, no, I appreciate that, because I think the heritage is more important the more that towns keep changing, and I think the downtown Oakville has done a great job so far. There's just one thing, and I think Councillor Giddings, he talked about it, it's the gateway. It didn't happen yet at Navy and Lakeshore. Is that going to happen?
We hope so. We are talking with facilities right now about including it in any future work, for example, being done in Centennial Square. That's kind of the point we're at with it right now. The hope is that it would be included in that. Outside of that, we have not discussed it. We are in discussions with them, but not through any other strategy, but we can look into potential other ways this may be done to be prepared.
Okay, I thank you. I appreciate the report, and I appreciate what you're trying to do, because I think it's important. We're lucky to have the downtown we do.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll remind the public that you were part of the council 12 years ago that brought in this conservation district, and this is the conservation district that was never able to be achieved before us. Councillor McNeice.
Just touch on what had to be changed to conform. My understanding is 2 elements out of the list of, I forget if it's 6 or so, had to be achieved instead of 1, or was it something different just to meet that OREG?
Through you, Mayor Burton, to the councillor, yes, that is one part of it. There were 2 changes. One was that originally to be considered contributing in a district, it was different than Part 4 designations. So the criteria was not necessarily as defined, but now it is that a property has to meet 2 out of the 906 heritage criteria to be considered contributing. And then that 25% of whatever buildings in your boundary for your district, they have to be contributing. So you have to have 25% meeting that 2 or more. And so we have achieved that at 72% downtown.
And sorry, what was it previously, before Bill 23?
For Part 4 designations, it was 1 criteria. For heritage conservation districts, I don't know if it used the same criteria. I would have to look in to confirm that, but I can get back to you on it.
So, and nothing fell off the list because of this, because of the update to the OREG.
Sorry, pardon me. Can you repeat
Nothing,
it?
no, sorry, nothing fell off the heritage list, like,
Oh, yes,
all of
no.
ours had to, okay.
Yeah, all the building categories, they previously, if they were, historic, they are still historic or contributing. If they were non-historic before, they are non-contributing still, yeah.
Okay, so essentially no impact from Bill 23 related to our heritage district.
Right, it was just to make sure that it aligned with legislation, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for that clarity.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you very much for the report. I just, from a trees perspective, I noticed that that you acknowledged that more trees were planted than were removed. I think forestry needs to update for you the number of trees that, additional trees, because there was a significant removal of the 2019 trees. They weren't thriving, and so we kindly, the BIA partnered with the town to add significantly more than the 7 that isn't listed on this report. Good news story is those are starting to do much better. So to get a 5, because it's a 3 out of 5, is it just the health and the canopy you're looking for?
Through you, Mayor Burton, to the councillor, yes, canopy was taken into consideration because we're comparing it to the objectives from 2013 when the canopy was larger. It is noted in the report that that is taken into consideration, but also that trees were planted is also positive. So to get to the 5, I would say canopy, it would be a considered element of it. Yes.
So maybe in 10 years we'll see. We'll
exactly.
get there.
Yeah.
My other question is again around the gateway. So the BIA chose to use a schooner or a boat in their logo as a result of doing a historical a review of downtown. Is there some consideration of using the harbor and emblematic of William Chisholm's boat building as part of the entry into downtown, given it was, I believe, that harbor, though I wouldn't want to, is that a possibility?
Yes, I would say it's a possibility. All those elements can be considered at that phase, and we're happy to work with the BIA as well when discussing that gateway feature when we get to it as well.
Well, what I really want to compliment about the report is that some guidance around when they have to ask, the process, it's much clearer, and several of the new landlords are really quite excited about some of the redevelopment that they're going to be able to do while still respecting the building. So thank you very much for your work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I just wonder if you could compare for us, maybe tonight, and if not tonight, and a follow-up. If 72 are contributing in the downtown, could we have a kind of a list of the number of contributing properties in the other districts as well, just so we know how all 4 of our children are doing? And could we also have, you said 77, we're at 77% in your score. Could we see the scores of the other students in the class?
Through you, Mayor Burton, to the mayor. Yes, that can be done. For the listing of contributing properties in all HCDs, and also, just to make sure I'm hearing this correctly, you want to see kind of a similar scoring of our other districts.
If it's not too much, if it's easy to do, I don't want to.
I feel like it would be done as part of this regular review process. So it's not just this district undergoing this new system. We're going to be doing it for all of the districts. So at that point, it would be a part of the regular review. Outside of that, it's quite an amount of work, I would say.
Well, then forget I asked.
We'll just remember it for the next one.
Thank you. All right, council, let me ask the public if they have any comments or offerings to this discussion. Going once, going twice. All right, it's confined to table for council to move receipt and carry on. Councillor Longo, Councillor Giddings, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that's carried, and we move to 7.2, the town-initiated official plan amendment on housing policies. And we have Brad Sunderland and Gabe Charles. And Mr. Sunderland, I note a title for you I haven't seen before, Housing Secretary. Congratulations, if that's in fact in order.
So thank you. So good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I am happy to bring forward item 7.2 on tonight's agenda. It's the statutory public meeting for the town-initiated official plan amendment regarding new and updated housing policies. So just as a presentation outline for tonight's presentation, I'll just first go over the staff report recommendations to set the stage as to the purpose of tonight's meeting. I'll provide a brief history on how we got to where we are today, followed by the key inputs which informed the draft official plan amendment housing policies, followed by an overview of the draft OPA itself, with concluding with the recommendations again and next steps. So at the conclusion of tonight's presentation, the following recommendation will be provided for council's consideration. The purpose of this meeting is for council to hear delegations from the public on the draft OPA and identify additional planning matters to be considered prior to a final staff recommendation to adopt the OPA at a future meeting of Planning and Development Council. So no decisions are being made at tonight's meeting. So how did we get to a draft official plan amendment for housing policies? So this may look familiar to a slide that was presented to you back in September that was in regard to the draft OPA and a housing needs assessment with a presentation from SHS Consulting. But again, just to go through it for the benefit of the public, in May of 2022, Planning and Development Council received a housing information report providing an overview of legislation, plans, and policies at the federal, provincial, regional, and town levels regarding housing. The report included commentary on various emerging matters, trends, and themes, and a preliminary assessment of the town's policies related to housing and the Livable Oakville Plan. The report identified issues and matters to be addressed in regard to housing. And although this report is largely out of date now, it remains as the early impetus to provide new and updated housing policies in the town's Livable Oakville Plan. And since that time, significant changes, of course, have occurred to the legislative and planning frameworks that govern land use planning in Ontario. In March of 2023, in response to provincial legislative changes, Council approved Oakville's Housing Pledge, which was to facilitate the delivery of 33,000 new housing units by 2032. The pledge was made to assist accelerating the delivery of housing in the province over the next 10 years. And in July of 2023, also in response to new and emerging federal programs and provincial changes, a town housing strategy and action plan was drafted and presented to council, which set the stage for the need to update OP policies informed by a housing needs assessment and exploring additional Planning Act tools to facilitate affordable housing. At this meeting, council directed staff to undertake public consultation on the draft housing strategy and action plan. With the identified need to complete a housing needs assessment, among other Planning Act tools to facilitate affordable housing, council directed staff to undertake the housing needs assessment in September of 2024, and the town retained consulting firm SHS to commence work on these housing studies. Meanwhile, in December of 2024, following the completion of the public engagement program on the Housing Strategy and Action Plan, Council approved that plan in December 2024, which maintained the action item to complete a housing needs assessment and to inform the new and or updated official plan policies. So we took that to a consultation stage for the housing needs assessment in the winter of 2024 and the spring of 2025, with a number of focus group sessions held to inform the development of the consultant's housing needs assessment, among other housing-related projects, such as the inclusionary zoning program, which you're familiar with, as well as the a community improvement planning process. Focus group sessions were held with representatives across various sectors, including housing service providers, community service providers, major business and business associations, the development industry, real estate professionals, Sheridan College, Halton Region Housing Services, and residents associations. And at the September 8th, 2025 Planning and Development Council meeting, Council received the final housing needs assessment with a presentation by SHS Consulting, as well as the draft official plan housing policies prepared by staff. Findings and recommendations from the housing needs assessment were used to inform the development of the draft official plan housing policies. And at that meeting, Council directed staff to undertake public engagement on the draft housing policies and report back on what was heard with refinements to the policies as necessary. And in the fall of 2025, public engagement on the housing policies took place. And as part of the public engagement program, an online survey to solicit input on the housing policies was provided and was available online through the town's webpage for just about 1 month. The online survey content, as well as summary of the comments received as part of that online survey, are provided in Appendix B to the staff report in front of you this evening. A meeting with the North Oakville community builders was also held to gain perspectives on ongoing challenges in the housing market and various opportunities to for further policy considerations to help deliver housing. The draft housing policies were also circulated to those involved in the development of the housing needs assessment for their consideration and comments. And based on public comments received to date, no immediate changes have been made to the draft OPA that was presented to Council back in September of 2025. However, the comments will continue to be considered as part of the finalization of an OPA moving forward. Which brings us to today. So tonight's meeting is the statutory public meeting on the OPA. It provides an additional opportunity to receive comments on the draft OPA and receive input from Council for staff to consider prior to bringing forward a final recommendation. Notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. And again, no decision on the OPA to approve it are being made at this meeting. So when developing the OPA, town staff considered and responded to several planning documents as noted on this slide. It included ensuring consistency with the PPS 2024, which directs planning authorities to provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities to meet projected needs of current and future residents, bringing forward relevant policies from the Halton Region Official Plan, now under the jurisdiction of the town, ensuring the housing priorities identified in the Halton Region's comprehensive housing strategy are considered and coordinated within the town's planning framework, addressing action items in the town's approved housing strategy and action plan as a foundation, using the town's existing policy framework in the Livable Oakville Plan to assist in policy formulation, ensuring that the town's urban structure is maintained, responding to policy recommendations in the town's recently completed housing needs assessment, and considering comments received to date, which is ongoing. So the next few slides provide a high-level overview of the draft OPA, which is provided in Appendix A in tonight's staff report. The OPA applies to lands in the Livable Oakville Plan area. And the purpose of the official plan amendment is to provide an updated policy foundation for housing in Oakville necessary to facilitate identified housing needs in Oakville over the long term. The updated policy framework will assist how the town can consider housing as part of future development applications and when making planning decisions. The OPA itself does not propose new development, nor does it change land use designations or permissions across the town. It does, however, provide a basis to ensure future development can better address housing as a key consideration in future decision-making. The policies provide updated housing objectives and associated policies. And to this end, the draft OPA will modify the text of the Livable Oakville Plan to primarily accommodate a new Section 7 housing within Part C, making Oakville livable, and considers and responds to the documents listed here as discussed as in the previous input slides. The effect of the OPA will make changes to various sections of the Livable Oakville Plan, including a new general policy housing section, Section 7, which provides townwide policies, revisions to the residential land use policy section 11, revisions to the mixed use land use policies in section 12, as well as revisions to the definitions or glossary section in section 31 of the Livable Oakville Plan. And the next slide goes over an overview of the changes in each section. So the new section 7 housing provides housing objectives and provides associated policies to support each objective under the headings shown here. The objectives and policies are intended to support growth management and enable housing opportunities to bolster housing supply within the framework of the town's urban structure, support the achievement of a livable, complete community, enhance housing choice, and enable the availability and accessibility of a wide range of housing to meet the diverse needs of the community through all stages of life, protect and encourage purpose-built rental housing, improve housing affordability and create opportunities for affordable housing, encourage process improvements to accelerate the delivery of housing, raise public awareness about housing needs in Oakville, and collaborate with agency partners and other levels of government to assist in achieving the objectives and policies of the plan. Other changes considered are within the town's land use designation policies pertaining to Part D, Section 11, residential land use policies, as well as Section 12, mixed use land use policies. The effective changes to the policies of Section 11 residential include introductory policies being updated to maintain the objective to protect and enhance the character of existing residential areas, with the remaining housing objectives being moved to the new Section 7 housing, which apply townwide. It includes moving policies unrelated to permitted uses to the new general policy Section 7, and it recognizes permitted uses already established in the zoning pertaining to lodging houses. It also includes minor wording updates to reflect current language and provincial regulation. Staff just want to note that as part of these changes, what's not changing in the residential land use policies are the land use designations themselves, including permitted uses and permitted densities. These remain the same. Further, the policies of Section 1119 to maintain and protect and enhance the character of existing residential areas are also maintained and not changed. The effect of changes to the policies of Section 12, mixed use, include updates to permit additional residential units and lodging houses to be consistent with permissions and residential land use designations and reflect our existing zoning permissions. The effective changes to Section 31, glossary, include revised and new definitions to be consistent with the PPS 2024. So with that, the statutory public meeting is the opportunity to receive input from the public on the draft OPA. Staff will consider all comments received, including those provided by council, to inform a final recommended OPA for council's approval. For the next steps, town will refine the draft OPA as applicable based on what we've heard tonight and the comments received, and bring forward a final OPA for council's consideration to adopt the OPA. And staff are currently targeting bringing forward a final OPA in March of 2026. And so with that, I conclude my presentation, and the recommendations for council's consideration are on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sunderland. We're going to have to get you some kind of refreshment or relief. You've got quite a few questions. And we'll lead off with Councillor Elgar.
Through you, Mayor Burton, thank you very much for the presentation. The words that I hear town-wide scare me. And I'm just wondering, is there something we can put in, like housing choices shall be directed primarily to identify growth areas and shall not undermine the stability of established neighborhoods? Like, because when you hear something, this is all town-wide, it really does scare me in an established neighborhood, what people may be thinking.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that is something that we consider to add to the policy framework, if that's something that would bring more comfort. I will say that the urban structure in our official plan maintains intact, and that really is the growth management framework that we continue to follow. There are policies within the enhancing housing choice piece which speak to the housing strategy and action plans action item regarding a missing middle strategy. So to explore additional opportunities for some level of appropriate contextual level of growth within our residential areas. So that includes our commercial sites specifically as one of the line items. And that is a direction also from the PPS 2024. So there will be additional study resulting from that and how that works. We haven't started that study process just yet, but that is in there. So if townwide policies here are intended to help shape how housing might be considered within development applications coming forward in future. So they do help to assist us in understanding, are pushing the needle towards rental housing. So we want to encourage rental housing. Can we get that? We want to establish, there's targets in there around unit sizes and mix. So how can we use these policies as leverage to encourage what we need and what we've identified as a need in Oakville for the different types of housing? So that's why it applies town-wide. It just applies to any development application that would bring forward any sort of residential. This is another policy lens in which we can look and assess those applications for the appropriateness and fit for Oakville.
Well, I thank you for that. I'm worried about the unintentional override established by the growth networks, the infrastructure capacity and neighborhood stability too. To me, that's important. But I realize we want more housing, but it's not just numbers. We've got to make sure what we are getting is what the people want, not dog cages to live in. I thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you so much for the presentation. So I find it interesting that when we have developers who want to develop high density and a lot of units, we seem to be really on board with that. But I'm finding, especially in the north, we have some builders who are saying we don't need to build such high density and we can build quality products, for families. So I know that the North Oakville Community Builders Association wrote a letter, and they were also saying that while we need high-rise apartments and they're essential, we feel that stacked townhouses or ground-related housing types can also improve affordability and could be less costly and provide attainable options for middle-class households, which some of us have really been talking about for a while now. And so I'm wondering, are we really considering these options? Because I feel in North Oakville, this is what people are looking for. It goes back to what Councillor Alger was saying. People don't want to live with their families in closets, and now we're seeing the condo market really go down. So are we giving developer more options to be able to do these stacked townhouses and other forms that are more livable for families?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I will agree that stacked townhouse options provide for all those things that you've mentioned, more ground-oriented housing that provides for greater affordability, and in this market, I think more likely to be constructed, given the condo market and sales and that sort of thing. These are things that we can definitely think about within the Livable Oakville plan through our missing middle strategy, if we're providing options on additional housing opportunities within our residential areas. Like, these are the locations on commercial sites where a contextual appropriate fit for new housing might be that lower rise character that is to maintain that throughout our residential areas. So these are definitely considerations that we will think about when we're further developing our future policies around that. I will say as well, as part of the, I believe there's a housing target in here around the different levels. So I think 60% of new housing, net new housing, is supposed to be high density. So within the context of that policy, that might include stacked townhouse development if they are within that high density category. So within Livable Oakville plan, the high density metric is anything between 51 and 185 units per site hectare, and oftentimes stacked townhouse developments would meet that. So it is an option, and that was part of the considerations, as I understand it, through the housing needs assessment, which informed that target. So.
Okay, I think that would be great, because if we're giving out permits and developers can't even develop because it's not worth building a high rise, then we should keep our options open as well. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor Burton.
Thank you, Councillor Nanda. Councillor O'Meara.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Maybe just to dovetail off of what Councillor Nanda was saying, it really, I guess my question is, are we flexible enough in our policies to adjust as quickly as the market and the development community is adjusting? And when we put our plans in place, Are we flexible enough so that it doesn't add more cost onto units because it's an 18-month delay because we're not flexible enough and we drive costs up? I guess how do we put in we talk ad nauseum throughout this document about affordability. How do we make ourselves more flexible in our policy so that when something comes up or when times change, we can move quick without adding costs through lawyers and planners and tribunals and OPAs and zoning amendments, that all it does is drive the cost up for people? How do we ensure that those flexibilities are built within our policy language?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, so that's a great question. In order for us to be able to be more flexible with land use permissions, we would have to go into our residential land use designations or our mixed use land use designations and add in additional permitted uses within various land use designations or categories than we have now. We might have to open up the flexibility of different density ranges that might be permitted in these things. So those are all ways forward to maybe enable more opportunity or flexibility, as you've mentioned. But it does come at, we do have to, so through this process, we're not changing any of those land use designations or changing the maps in any way. This is more of an additional housing lens in which to review a development application coming forward. But those are tools that might be looked at through, say, the missing middle strategy, if that is something that we want to do. I know there's one of the policies in there speak to the commercial sites or underutilized sites. And so maybe part of it is looking at, changing density ranges within those locations and even in our mixed use areas. But we do have to make sure that in doing that, we're still achieving our minimum targets, that we're not necessarily going to jeopardize that. So it is a balance for sure.
Well, and I appreciate that. And I've got from Altus did a survey, in 2021, out of GTA new home sales, there were 46,000. Next year, 25. In 2024, it was 9,000. And last year, there were only 5,500 new sale homes. We are on a trend where we will have no new homes being sold here because we're missing what we need to do because we plan 25 years out and the market doesn't. And I guess what the market and what our policies are planning is build it high and build it small. And we've seen what's happen in Midtown where nobody wants that. But our policies still dictate, no, urban center, build it high, build it stack, and get the density there, and people aren't buying that. So I'm wondering how we adjust, or if you say that, well, it's got to be in established residential communities now. I'm not sure if that's the option we want too, but I guess I'm wondering whether staff are looking at what we need to do to perhaps look at, is our urban structure working if it only includes 30, 40 story high rises because that's the only way we make the density? Is it like, are we hitting what are not just what the residents want, but what the market is willing to bear right now? And have we done that study? And by the time we're done that study, is it too late because it's changed? I guess that's my question. How do we move quicker than the market does, or at least keep pace with that when trying to decide how to grow and where to grow and what makes sense?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I'm not sure I can answer that question for you, but we can take that back and look at opportunities, maybe suggest something in our future recommendation report that might lead us to having that conversation in more depth.
I appreciate that. And so then I'll get into the nitty gritty just because it's here, and I want to say that on page 342, where we talk about how, the town's going to work with the development community, housing providers, and broader community towards the following targets. And we literally list with a percentage of unit sizes and ranges and numbers. And I don't know that even includes what what the development community is seeing or what the market's seeing out there. I just know that's our targets. I don't know what that's based on, when that was, or what that, is that 25 years from now? Is it in 3031? Like, it just seems that we're ascribing a percentage of what we want, but it's devoid of what maybe the market is saying is out there. And I know in Brawny, developers have had to tack tail and turn because they missed the market, and they're turning quickly. But if we've got targets already, how are they going to switch quickly when we've already told them these are our targets? Like, I don't think we can move that quick enough. So my question would be, on page 342, can we work in some language here that is a little more suggestive and hopeful, rather than we're going to work for this like a 52% and a 32%. We're very definitive in what we're looking for right here, and I don't think the market is anywhere close to as definitive as we want to be. So I'm hoping we can maybe look at some language that's a little less definitive and a little more flexible on what the market is going to say is being definitive. My last point two more quick points. My last point is on page 344, 7.2.6, enable process improvements. And in number B, it says the town will undertake continuous process improvements to accelerate the administration times associated with the review of planning and development applications. I have to be honest, I've been hearing that for 10 years. Like, we need an absolute definitive process whereby if we don't make our timelines, there are penalties for us as well. I've heard 11 submissions, 18 submissions on a development site. I mean, developers go in on site plan things and they have no clue what the wants or the asks are. Transportation engineering comes in at the last minute and changes plans. Like, it is a Jenga when the pieces all fall of what the expectations are. And I know it's not that way in other municipalities. I know Brampton has a 3 and you're in, and we've talked about this, 3 submissions, and there's a major failure at our town process or city process. And I would like to see a commitment to an actual definitive process that everybody knows the rules of the game for and everybody can follow. Because I've also heard that the cost on a unit has gone up $150,000 because it took us an extra 18 months for environmental came at the last minute and these sorts of things. And so if we talk about affordability, we need to have predictability. And I think that's fair for not just our residents, for our kids, for our grandkids, but for the whole community who's trying to find out what are the rules of the game here. And not knowing what the rules of the game, I don't think that language is strong enough. So I'd like to see some stronger language on both sides, just about what we are expecting from people who go through the development process. And I'm not talking about the OPA discussion that we have at this council, whether it should be or shouldn't be. Once that's approved, it's a matter of process. And we have an obligation to our residents and to our kids and grandkids to make sure that we're not driving the costs up by $150,000 or $200,000 for no reason because people are coming at the end. So I'd like to see that. And just to go in at the end, following that, 7.2.7, again, I don't know where this collaboration part comes in with all of the partners, not just the region and the town, but everybody else who's included in here when it comes to delivering housing and sort of thing. So I'd like to see some language that's a little more accurate about all the partners that are involved in building housing, and I would appreciate that. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adams.
Thank you very much. I want to draw our attention to Appendix B in the online survey responses and summaries. And I see on page 351 of the overall agenda the breakdown by postal code. And I was kind of surprised, though some might say, why would you be surprised, where wards 4, 5, 6, and 7 had very little response compared to the southern wards. And then similarly on the age breakdown, and then again in the rental versus homeowner categories, we had splits that really don't match the distribution and makeup of the community. And I wondered whether in the material that you've described, the summarized material, whether there's breakdowns that you could provide that would better help us understand if there's a difference in the views that were expressed from wards 4, 5, 6, and 7. And there's one very important person in Ward 7 that appears to have answered this survey, because it looks like there was only one. So I don't know if it was one of the ward councillors that decided to answer or something. But then similarly in the age group categorization, it looks like we don't have a lot of people in the under 44 category. And I wondered if we could provide a breakdown of what the thoughts were for the younger cohort there versus the older cohort. And similarly, on the next page on 352, there's a breakdown of homeowner and renter, and it says that 12% of responses were from renters, and that's only about half of the makeup of the town of Oakville. We've got a rental rate that's about double that. And so I wondered if we could better reflect the comments by those categories. Is that possible?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, yeah, it's possible. We have it all tracked through an Excel spreadsheet, so we can just isolate for those things and pull up that if there's differences between responses provided for renters versus homeowners, for a younger demographic versus an older demographic, as well as based on postal code. So if you're interested in the comments specifically from wards 4, 5, and 6, we can isolate those.
That would be really helpful. I'd appreciate that. And I know in a way it's anecdotal because the number of responders is quite small, but I think it would be helpful to understand that. And the final question related to that is there a way that we can get a better sense of what those other groups of people are thinking?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, we can provide you with the raw spreadsheet of the actual responses themselves.
So I think that's a good start.
I can do that. We summarize it here for the purpose of brevity, but also just filtering out some of the comments that weren't necessarily great. But we can do that and provide that to you.
Okay. I guess it's really a communications question about how to do better outreach to those groups.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Action item 2.7 talks about enhancing the official plan policies that will support innovative housing through encouraging alternate forms of housing, modular housing, manufactured, prefab, etc. Is that the extent of innovative housing? Does that tick all of our boxes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I don't think it's an exhaustive list. I think it's just used as an example of the things that might be innovative. I can't predict what might come forward in the next 10 years of the next innovation of housing, but I think our policies are open-ended enough to encourage those things to come forward as well.
Would that include tiny homes or small houses or whatever the current name is, where they are prefab? It talks about prefab homes. Would that be like the container homes, mini homes that would be looking at?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I mean, if those are things that are going to become pressure points on the town to consider, then there may be opportunities through additional study, perhaps, to allow some of those things to happen or not happen. I'm sure there would be much interest from a lot of residents to see how that might unfold and if there was any zoning regulations that would be applied to that, be it different than, say, an accessory dwelling. Perhaps there's something more that needs to be looked at there. I haven't heard any interest or pressures on the planning department, as maybe Gabe could chime in on that, but to provide for these, although I do know that they are trending as an
All right,
option.
so the innovation is modular, manufactured, prefab, pretty well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is what is currently in there, but I don't think that's an exhaustive list in terms of what innovation might come forward.
All right. Housing with support for priority households. So that would be income driven for some. Would it also include seniors, disabled, those that are in need of care and support?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, in the housing needs assessment, they did a review of various population groups and demographic groups, which I guess, and through the interviews that we had with various housing service providers, different segments of the population, be it racialized groups or new immigrants to Canada and various other groups, they, I guess, face a disproportionate barrier to accessing housing that is affordable to them. So options really from a official plan level standpoint, we can provide those types of policies that identify that. But in terms of any kind of programming around that, in terms of assisting to overcome those barriers, a lot of those have to do with programs that would be funded either through Halton Region and their assisted or subsidized housing programs. Other options at the town, if that's something that we want to continue to look at, are through community improvement planning programs that target those things, or channeling funding through to housing service providers specifically that actually deliver the housing itself. So that is kind of the policy framework here for kind of a high level piece for the OPA, and that's reflective of the housing needs assessment.
Thank you. You mentioned ground-oriented housing. I take it bungalows won't be returning anytime soon, given the value of the land that they'll be. So what else would that consist of?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So typically, I guess when we talk about ground-related housing, it's just low-rise housing that have doors that have access right to the street, rather than an apartment dwelling that has a tower or an elevator.
Like we see a lot of currently.
Yeah. So even through you, Mr. Mayor, even a townhouse infill development is still ground-related housing. It's housing that's oriented to the street with front doors.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Councillor McNeice.
Thank you. Through your worship, thanks for the report and presentation. Just a couple of observations. I was watching the Committee of Adjustment a few weeks back, and there was an applicant in North Oakville that was trying to get a variance to reduce a condo down to stacked towns. And the thing that sort of caught my eye is I believe it was either 11 or 14-story condo, and they achieved the exact same density at 4-story stacked towns back to back. And the rationale was you eliminate the hallways and the elevator shafts and a number of kind of wasted space like that, and you can pack people in pretty good. But it was a close vote, but it did not succeed as a minor variance, and they have to kind of go through another process. But to I think it was Councillor Mayor's point, like, you know, maybe there's a different mechanism that if a condo developer, for a developer in general, wants to adapt to today's market. I mean, we've got a case in Brawley where they're you know, having some long delays, but if there's a different product now, and I believe these, in this case, it was 3-bedroom stacked towns, and they could, you know, fit about 1 or 2 on each floor, or yeah, I guess 1 on each floor. You know, and they're trying to respond to today's market conditions quickly. So if we could just give some more thought, is it a, you know, an alternate process that doesn't take you all the way through, you know, whether it's a zoning amendment or an official plan amendment, something that could be minor in nature where they're achieving the same density, it's just a different form that's desired. So I'm just giving that as feedback. I found it interesting that it came to Committee of Adjustment. They were wrestling with it. I don't think they had too many things like that, and I'm not sure that's the venue for it. Maybe it is, but maybe there's an alternate way if somebody is really just trying to change form, not really density, to provide the housing that we need. My second point is, I believe it was today on CBC, there was a segment on co-op housing. And in Toronto, they're getting a development going there. So it's essentially you're buying into the owning of the whole building through a nonprofit instead of your own unit, which, you know, I think there's probably 10 or 12 different solutions we need. And but just wondering, is there anything that we can possibly do to encourage something like this in the missing middle? I think we might have one or, you know, some small examples here. I know Burlington has some bigger ones. Toronto's getting some even larger ones. But do you have any thoughts around co-op housing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, co-op housing is, I guess, a form of tenure of housing. We at the town would regulate development through more of our land use policies, densities, built form, and that sort of thing. I don't think there's anything in our policies that would preclude a not-for-profit cooperative housing development to come forward as a development application and apply to meet the policies of our existing official plan. But if there's opportunities to encourage those types of tenures of development to come forward, we can look into that. I don't think that there's anything in the official plan in terms of the actual permissions and designations that would necessarily preclude that, aside from, you know, the options to provide for more flexibility within our land use policy framework. But yes, that's definitely something that we can take back.
Okay, yeah, so I think maybe more around the encourage side, I can appreciate it would take a nonprofit to try to help facilitate something like that, but I'm not sure what really was the tipping point in Toronto to get a development moving forward on it, but it's quite recent, and if there's some lessons that can be learned as to how we could encourage more diversity of tenure, as you say, I think that could be good because it provides stability on sort of monthly payments, as well as price appreciation for a certain tenure of housing. So thanks for taking that into consideration.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hazeltine.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Burton. Okay, where do I begin? I'll begin with the survey. So I would concur that I think with where Councillor Adams was going is that understanding the meat underneath those numbers would be helpful for all of us, not just a couple of wards. 90 doesn't seem to me to be what you would have been happy with, but that's what you got, and we all know and go through that struggle of trying to get people to participate. We have RAs in the south that we can get the word out, but even then it can be challenging to get responses. And I note that lots of the comments don't necessarily reflect what's in the draft. So I just want to put that on the record. Like, you did get feedback, but that's not what's in here consistently. A few questions. One is, when you talk about moderate income, just because the devil is in the detail, what are we talking about in terms of what's moderate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So if you can think of income levels in 10 deciles, so each decile has the same number of population and it goes up. So it'd be the 60th percentile is the top end of moderate income. And for Oakville, those are defined in the, there's a provincial bulletin that's been developed for the purposes of the Development Charges Act, but that's what we're using for this policy framework as well. And the most recent one for the 60th percentile, an affordable purchase price in Oakville, I believe, is around $575,000. So if you can imagine that price point as being what's deemed affordable to low and moderate income households, what you can buy in Oakville is significantly limited based on our existing housing forms that are available to us. So it really does, and this was also presented in previous regional state of housing reports that speak to, affordability really is more achievable in higher density products and not single detached or semi-detached. Even townhouses are challenging. It's usually a more higher density housing product, simply the fact they're smaller.
Okay,
So.
I just wanted to understand where you were putting that barometer. Mm-hmm. You said something interesting just a while ago about high density is 51 to 181 per hectare.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the existing density range for the residential high density designation in the Livable Oakville plan, the density range is 51 to 185 units per site hectare. That's for the residential land use designations. For the mixed use designations, there isn't a density range in the general policy framework, but there may be site specific density ranges specific to individual growth nodes. And that varies depending on the site. Okay,
it's just, forgive me, but if I could get 181 per hectare in certain area, I'd have died and gone to heaven. Not that I know I'm going to get there, but can you help me a little bit with the 15-year supply? So a little bit to where Councillor Amira was going in terms of we need to have a projection of what our growth would be. But is that fundamental to those targets you're proposing? Because you may recall that we had quite the debate about the joint best planning estimates that were never approved by council. and the number was off by something like 75,000. Are we using the Minister of Finance's projections for growth for Oakville? Can you just give us a little bit more clarity on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So the 15-year supply policy here is just for this exercise, more of a consistency exercise to respond to the PPS 2024, which requires us to have this. In terms of the joint best planning estimates and those numbers, I'm going to defer to my colleagues because I am not as familiar with those conversations and those debates that have happened. So I'll defer if that's okay. If that question can be responded to, or maybe it's something that we can take back.
Thanks, Brad. Through Mayor Burton to the councillor, regarding forecasts and estimates, those are an ongoing work in progress. The joint best planning estimates were released at a time when we were making a long-range forecast in collaboration with the Halton region and the other local municipalities, and really those numbers are still useful for us and being used by us for infrastructure planning in the long term. In the shorter term, or the nearer term, we're refining those forecasts. We have ongoing work with some of our demographic and economic consultants to refine those. We've seen some of those revised numbers coming out in parts of town related to our strategic growth areas, and there's town-wide forecasting underway. It's something we're always looking at and revising.
But to Councillor Miro's question about flexibility, you have a 15-year projection, but are these targets that you're establishing using that 15-year projection, and do they potentially convey something to the development community that is not deliverable?
Trying to understand your question, Councillor. The forecasts and targets are out there and are to be achieved over time and adjusted over time. The market will change as we're seeing presently, yep. But when we're dealing with a long-term forecast, that's looking at our urban structure, and it's maintaining those pieces, those elements in place for the long term.
Right, but when we say we want to get to a certain percentage of 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, we are basing that in part on this projection, this forecast. Do I have that correct? Somebody's nodding or looking.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So SHS Consulting did their housing needs assessment, and they used the, I believe it was Watson's numbers to inform their analysis. And they compared that with demographic projections based on the existing census data and looking at what would be needed long-term housing need. So, and tracking that forward. So that's how they got to the different types of unit sizes and the percentage of what might be needed based on I guess, the Watson work as well as the census data.
Okay. There is a reference to 35% of Midtown being having affordability. Can you just clarify what that means?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So this OPA doesn't reference Midtown specifically. If there's there might be area-specific targets that may be established through individual growth planning exercises, which is a policy, and that was a recommendation from the SHS work to consider the potential to establish area-specific targets where applicable. So if there was targets established for the Midtown work, that would have been done through that work program. I can't answer that specifically myself, but again, perhaps others that are more involved with Midtown might be able to.
So can we take that away just to be clear about what we are projecting would be the affordability? Because we have had a recent announcement from the province that they are considering not allowing inclusionary zoning, and which we know would help us with affordability or affordable units. And so I just want to make sure that we're not committing to something that is A, not achievable in provincial policy, and B, not realistic based on what's the market conditions. So if you could take it away just in terms of reflecting on that, I'd appreciate it. When you were drafting this, was there a lens that legal reviewed it in terms of the impact if there are appeals to the Ontario Land Tribunal and the potential that it overrides what I'll define as local context, or our decision just to refuse, we refuse it, it's going to get appealed, but it reflects the local context of what we want to achieve in that specific neighborhood or that specific street. Has this draft been gone through from a legal perspective of any risks at the OPA, at the OLT?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I have not heard from legal about risks assessment with this type of policy framework. Perhaps that's something that we can take away and look at those potentials.
Okay. I'd appreciate that. And I'm aware that there are some delegations. So my only other two areas I immediately want to understand is just the change in lodging or additional needs housing. If you could take back looking at Kingston and Brampton, they have an approach to looking at the scale of that within a neighborhood. And by all means, individuals need to be able to find homes and care, and that care needs to be fulsome and provided. But the language, the way it's written, I would like to understand if there is an option for scale to be considered rather than it be an absolute. If you could take that away, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. Council, if that's exhausted your questions, I'd be pleased to ask the clerk to call our registered delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Marianne Richardson.
Welcome, Ms. Richardson. Council's looking forward to your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, and planning staff. I found that a very interesting conversation and contributing a lot more than my delegation. So I'll just be very brief. I'm not as familiar as a lot of you are with the documents around.
Would you move? Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not as familiar as most of you are with the documents, so my read was a read of uneducated, I guess, citizen looking at what we were looking at. And just a few comments, not a lot, but I found it very confusing to look at the housing broken down almost by a combination of affordability and building type. I think those two things should be separated, so you should be looking at low density and describing it and including back-to-back towns as well as stacked towns. And then medium, I guess medium density and singles and like condominium high-rise. And then within those categories, you could break down how much of that stock should be affordable. And would be helpful to say, and who's going to support the affordability? Is it all going to be on the builders? Is Halton Region paying for some of it? Is the province paying for some of it? That would be helpful. So those were my comments there. And the other question was, when you're putting out the numbers, does the finance department take any kind of look at it to see what the financial impact would be on the Oakville property tax base? Because if you've driven numbers too high in an affordability area, or you have something else off, it would be helpful to know before passing the policy. So that was one other comment. And I think there was one more. Oh, was the changes, the Ontario government changes that infrastructure costs are only paid at occupancy as well, what the impact of that would be on town finances. So those are really my three comments, if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson, for your comments. Councillor
you.
Hazardale, did you have something for Ms. Richardson?
Thank you very much for coming out, and thank you for looking actually at the financial elements, because that didn't come up in our conversation the way it needs to, and yet we need to understand if we're going to hit those targets, what are the financial implications? So thank you for that.
Councillor Elgar.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mayor Burton, The questions you ask is very, very reasonable. Hey, can staff remind me what the latest is, how much we're in a deficit because of the provincial rules regarding growth, what it's costing us, or how many million? I forget the last one that our CIO sent to us. Maybe they can
Councillor,
remind me.
I was going to ask you to just pull it up since it's only recently been given to you.
Well, I figured the staff will have it. I'd rather have it coming from them.
I don't see finance here, but if you want to pick on planning, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take the bait. If we can go into the council portal, because it was in the council portal the last time that it was presented by the CIO, so we can pull up that number and we can just send it around.
I think that'd be good. I think it's for the public to hear that before the night is over here. Thank you.
Councillor, by any chance, is your impression that the shortfall is around 30 million a year?
Yes, that would be a very realistic ballpark. Yes.
All right, well, I hope that's been helpful for everybody.
And growing.
All right. Mr. Clerk, are there any other delegations? Are there any members of the public minded to contribute to the discussion? All right, council, who wants to move and second receipt? Councillor Hazlet-Deal and Councillor Adams, is that the, Councillor Hazlet-Deal, I misinterpret your hand.
I had some additional questions, but I thought there were a couple more delegations, so may I?
Well, you're over your allotted time for questions. Are any of them the kind that you can just send in to staff?
Well, if I had realized I was going to be cut off, I probably would have asked these two. If you would bear my indulgence, I would like to ask if in looking at the written submission by Duncan Galloway, he references the importance of metrics in terms of establishing what is a complete community. I'm wondering if that can be added to your review. If you could also look at while you're being prescriptive about 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, you're not referencing the size of those units. And fundamentally, that is one of the elements that's falling apart in the market right now, is that it is not what the market is looking for. And then finally, you use the language shall and achieve. And you graciously trained me when we were going through the Midtown OPA to be careful about the word shall. And so I'm just coming back to say, do you need to use the word shall? Or is there a word that gives us the flexibility, which is what Councillor Amira was also talking about? Thank you, Mayor Burton, for your indulgence.
Anytime, Councillor. Can I put you down for moving and Councillor Adams for seconding receipt of the information? Thank you, Councillor. Is there any objection to the motion? Mr. Clerk, there's no objection showing, so that's carried, and that brings us to 7.3. It's 8 o'clock. I anticipate that we'll be a minute or two on 7.3. I just asked the one cheeky question. Would everybody like a 5-minute stretch and bio break before we begin this? All right, we are in recess. Let's come back at 8:10. Let's see if 6 or 7 minutes will do us.
Recording stopped.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're resuming the meeting, and I'm calling council back to the table and back to order. And excuse me, if you don't want to participate in the meeting, you can take that outside. Otherwise, please make yourselves comfortable. All right, council, I'm going to turn to Colin Westeroff, our senior planner, and Kate Coburn, the manager, to set us up for what we're about to see. I will say that this is a public meeting report. There's a presentation by an applicant of an application, and we have registered delegations who want to share their opinions of the applications. And so, Mr. Westerhoff, do you want to set this all up for us, please?
Absolutely. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So today we have a presentation by the applicants 420 South Service Road Holding Corporation for their reintroduction of their official plan amendment and the draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment. So you'll see in your staff report, you've got some information, primer, if you will, for the public meeting presentation that they're going to get into right now, if you let them.
All right. So is that David McKay and Rasmus Astrup on behalf of Rose Corporation? Yes, it appears it is. So you guys are going to focus on, except I don't see David McKay here.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna walk us through how your application has changed?
Yes.
All right. Well, please have at it.
Thanks very much for having us. My name is David McKay. I'm a registered professional planner with MHBC. Rasmus Astrup is from SLA Architecture out of Copenhagen, who's the designer on this, so he will get into those details. We also have our client as well as our other project team members here to answer questions. For anyone watching tonight, you can call in, and the number is 905-815-6085. I believe that's
be 95.
Sorry, cut off for some reason at the bottom. And we're happy to answer questions that council may have. With regards to the proposal, and there we go. Oops. So the site is located at 420 South Service Road East. We did make an application in 2024. We've had a public meeting on this. We've been working diligently with staff. We've met with a number of the councilors and the mayor and a number of the other agencies to work through some of the comments and concerns. And really, we're reintroducing this project, which I'll get into further detail. The site, as shown on red, is on the screen, is 27 acres in size, with approximately 400 meters of frontage along South Service Road. Obviously, mainly vacant, being used for temporary storage currently, but there is the remnant GE office building, which will be incorporated into the overall development. From a planning perspective, a couple of quick slides here. I won't spend too much detail. We obviously have an official plan amendment to the current livable Oakville plan. Right now, it is office employment, and we're redesignating to a site-specific urban core designation. As part of OPA 70, these lands were identified as urban core, and even with that, if that is approved by the province, we would be looking for changes to height, density, and some other items like park location and some adjustments to the street network. But generally, we're in line with the overall framework in that regard for redevelopment. In terms of zoning, it is right now a Midtown Transitional Employment Zone with a temporary use permission, and we are obviously looking for a site-specific urban core MU4 zone to implement the proposal. And lastly, we have submitted a draft plan of subdivision application. Staff were looking for additional details on implementation, so we've provided a detailed plan outlining the future street network that would be created, the north-south roads throughout and east-west roads, and the various phasing documents as we see them today in the various blocks, the 4 quadrants, and that will be implementing the transportation, servicing, and community infrastructure. In terms of the proposal, as I'd mentioned, we've been working through this. We've come up with a revised design, which Rasmus will get into. But effectively, in terms of stats, we have increased the parkland on site by 6% of the site area, from 18.7% to 24.7%, as compared to the provincial requirement of 15% for the size of site. We've reduced the number of towers down by 2. We've spread the site out. We've provided for more livability with regards and porosity from a pedestrian and cycling perspective through the plan. It's resulted in a net reduction of 44 stories if you take all of the buildings together and reduce it down, while keeping the tower separation to provide for that generous sky view. We have increased the amount of retail space, and while we have put in unit counts, those are still flexible, and we're still working through that as part of the more detailed design, but it's about just under 7,000 on the overall project that will occur over time. In terms of the differential, I will introduce this and then I'll let Rasmus take over. But effectively, on the left-hand side, we had your kind of a traditional approach, density blocks on the 3 quadrants with a consolidated park block. And as Rasmus will get into detail, we've changed that approach to really create an integrated community focused on the landscape with the various built form elements framing those various quadrants of the building while still maintaining the overall infrastructure requirements for roads and servicing that as contemplated in the Midtown Oakville plan. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rasmus to get into those details.
Thank you so much. I'm from SLA. We are a landscape architect and planners from Copenhagen. We are working in Canada and other places around the world. But if we are looking at these two plans, and it's probably the most boring technical plan to explain something that we feel is amazing, but there is two approaches in these two plans. One of them is that you take care of business within your own little square, and then you say that's for residents, and then there's a park, and then there's another resident, and they're split by a road. The difference on the, for me, right side is that you share things. You share the urban realm, and instead of walking from your house into the park, it's actually what I would call park living. And it's on a design approach that is so thought through that we, if you look at the two drawings, you can see that the road going north to south from down towards the lake is disappearing. It's not because we are not building the road, it's because you actually have a public accessibility under the road. There's a passage there. And on the southern side, there is a bridge. So it means that in the right side of the master plan, because Travis Road is going to be fairly calm, you can actually walk in a loop all around the area in a shared public and green space. The reason why we are doing that is that we felt that it was necessary to think about the most dominating thing on the site. Well, it's not so dominating when you look at it, but actually this site is not flat. It actually slopes like the entire area in Oakville does, because the ravines is leading water down to the lake. So this one is taking advantage of that, and thereby having a podium that you can walk around. And I will maybe go to the renders because they explain it a bit better. So when I drove to Oakville the first time, I found out that Oakville is pretty nice. It's very lush. We had a drive down the high street. I saw some villas I would like to have next to the lake, but I also felt a community vibe. Maybe it's just because I'm a romantic guy, but I felt that. And I felt that it's more lush than anywhere else. And not anywhere else, but compared to Toronto. And we are doing a modern development here. We have to. But we also have to acknowledge that we are in Oakville. So for that reason, we felt that it was necessary to bring as much nature, and we call it city nature. I am aware that it's something that we are planting in and between the buildings. And we are doing that because it means that it provides that park identity right outside of your doorstep. And the elevated area, as you see here, is also called a podium. It will be public accessible. You see the bridge on the right side of the picture because we need to assure that pedestrianized loop that we are promising. And you see a lot of trees. Are we very running out of time? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that I feel that we felt was really essential is that streets should not be designed for cars only. So the whole approach to Dave Street, as you see here, where the active frontages, and that's the thing, by the way, that density, I get the discussion, but density is also a density of people, of critical mass. So if you want to have active frontages, people that sit on the cafe, kids that use the playground, young teenagers that play soccer, you also need a certain amount of foot flow. So we feel there's a good balance here by sharing and distributing the urban space as we have done. And here you can see that even sidewalks should be treated like urban spaces. We are thinking about the seasonality throughout the years. We are working on projects in Oslo and other places in Scandinavia, so it's a very normal thing for us, but also the daylight and the artificial light are considered into this plan.
All right, well.
And I'm out of time. Can I just sum up these 5 points?
Yeah,
No?
you've just run out of time.
I'm
so
sorry for that.
I'm
Sorry,
gonna,
Mayor.
If you'll give me a chance, I'll try to help you out. If you and your colleague could springboard to explain to us the following conundrum. I hear that you want to rely on OPA 70 to change the land uses, and I wonder why you don't want to rely on OPA 70 for the density, the height, the parks, the roads, and the rest of it as well.
Thank you. Well, I'll start. I don't think there's any question that even before OPA 70, these lands were intended to be mixed use. So to say we're relying upon OPA 70 just in that regard is a little bit misleading. I think Council's vision has always been to develop Midtown in the recent review over the last number of years for a more mixed-use community on both sides of Trafalgar, and so we're respecting that. In terms of the road networks and whatnot, we're pretty much bang on there. We are introducing a frontage on our west side, and that is to create those blocks and create street-facing development. Relative to height and density, in the park, we've come up with a revised design as Rasmus has gone through in terms of thinking about the park components. Obviously, as Rasmus has mentioned, you need a certain density of people to support both the intensification, the retail that's proposed, as well as the park components to deliver the quality of living that we're looking at here. And so those things go hand in hand, and perhaps, and through this process, you know, and I think OPA 70 has mentioned that additional height can be achieved through community benefits, and we're looking at those components, specifically in this instance, the significant increase in green space being proposed, public parkland as well as private, as well as looking at community space within the heritage building that's on site to adaptively reuse that appropriately, and other mechanisms that we'll continue to discuss with council and the community and staff to come up with a very livable community. But that does take the height and density that we're looking at achieving on this site.
Well, thank you very much. Did Rasmus want to add anything?
Thank you for asking that question, councillors and mayor. Yeah, it is definitely supporting the quality of the urban realm, and to be frank, also a business case. So we here have an opportunity to provide a high qualitative urban realm that I think is different from what I'm working on in Toronto. And I asked my client if I can promise to give enough soil depth for the trees and everything, so it's all cleared out before today. So I stand by what you see on the renders. So I think that's definitely it. And then I think what was mentioned also, the scale of the site is actually fairly big. So we feel that is also appropriate. And within that shared urban space, I think it's also important to say that because they're sharing it, it doesn't mean that it's all equal. There are so many different opportunities that we can provide now in the flowing network, like under the bridge informality, the community hub, and so on. So it's about that. And then lastly, then I will stop, is how the plan is providing a network in beyond the site boundary. There's also something about big moves, how it taps into the whole district that we have considered quite a lot.
Well, we have other members of council who also have questions, so I'll turn to them. Councillor Adams and then Councillor O'Meara, and then I'm sure there'll be others.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm amazed that we have somebody from Copenhagen who's presenting to us today. We've heard the word Copenhagen in this council chamber untold numbers of times in the last couple of years. And so I'm fascinated to know whether this is a kind of design that you would see in Copenhagen.
I would say for the urban real quality, yes. Of course, I mean, Copenhagen is not as big as you. But we are actually also now doing tall buildings as well. Not as much as here. I mean, Copenhagen is smaller. But in terms of the distribution of urban space, yes, I would say so. What we are not as good as this one is doing is that here we managed to put all of the cars underground, so it actually provides they're more or less not visible. They are buried into the terrain. I would like to say that we do that in every project. We don't, but I wish we did. But it has the same qualities. I think it's also about is it Oakville? Is it the quality that I already felt when I was there? And I feel that's the lushness and the character and the biodiversity and the other contributions that I feel is correct for that place. So what we do in Copenhagen, what I feel the new design did was that it took care, it considered what's there. We are also using the landscape actually to provide a buffer from the highway that brings a lot of noise. So there's a lot of other thoughts in the landscape that is related to how the water flows, how the sound is, sun and wind and all of that. So that's, I would say you are getting the Copenhagen approach, but it's designed for Oakville and not for Copenhagen.
Okay, thank you very much for that thought. You started with a discussion about there being more porosity of the site with respect to the transportation network specifically. And it was something that I asked about when you first came to council with the applications. Can you go into that a little bit more? I kind of feel like you didn't have time to talk to us about the changes that you've made to the road network and the active transportation system that you've incorporated within the site. Particular, in the image that you showed us, it looked like part of the road network had been buried or something. Can you describe that?
Sure. Perhaps if staff can put up the slide deck, I can go to that and point it out. Great. Thank you. Okay. It's So so what Rasmus was talking about, so what we have is at the north end, we have the overpass over the highway. So that what we've tried to show here on this is that underneath the highway, underneath that component that's raised, once it gets out of the ground, we're looking at really activating that with with open space, with activity, and Rasmus has got a. There we go.
This is the example, and this is actually a space under the highway, and you are looking into the existing heritage building, and I know that on the highway is it nicer to be under trees or probably, but what these places offer is informality. They offer a character that is different, that can be more cultural, more streetwide, maybe more for the teenagers in the area. So it's a different atmosphere. So we actually appreciate areas like this because they can be used for art installation. So again, this is showcasing that on the northern part, you can the urban space continues, and then on the southern you have a bridge. And it's an effort needed to make.
So the green space goes underneath
it does,
the road, not over. So, okay, so it's the other way around.
It's the other way around, and I apologize if I've misled in the presentation, but yes, it does.
No. It was just, I looked at your aerial map, and it looked to me like it was the other way around. The road was buried. In this case, it's actually
But this one will also give a more logic flow.
And you're trying to retain the use of the space underneath the roadway for pedestrians. Okay. Thank you very much. Is there a better image that you could show us of the pedestrian and cycling facilities through the space?
I think, and Rasmus, you can get into details. I think if you look at the right-hand page of the page, all of that green space that we have there, the dark green, the light green, all those areas are pedestrian-oriented and cycling-oriented. So they're all interconnected. We've worked through a lot of details which are in our submission material, looking at, how do we deal with ramps, because there is that grade differential. How do we deal with stair components? How do we, bridge over the major arterial, the north-south arterial? We were looking at trying to narrow Davis Road as well to make it more pedestrian-oriented. Obviously, staff have certain standards, so we've met those standards rather than narrowing it further. But we really have tried to focus that pedestrian realm on those items, and we do have additional material of circular arrows and where people can go with their bikes or with pedestrians throughout the material.
Okay.
And it is actually unfair that you have to get an explanation based on this drawing. But yeah, the dark green area is, imagine it's at grade and you can walk there. And the only difference is that it's more or less 2 levels. So the lower southern part, you will need to elevate you up to, which is shown here. So everything that is above that facade, as you see, is one unifying landscape. You walk over a bridge, as you can see there. You can walk under the highway up north behind the buildings. And then the southern part obviously requires a connection, which is what you see on the upper right corner on this picture, which is a sloped landscape that also functions as an accessibility ramp, so that there is accessibility following the rules for everyone anywhere in the public realm, and everyone uses the same route to get everywhere.
Okay, I've just got one more question, and I know you've got half dozen more speakers. So what's the FSI of the application?
Overall, we're at 5.14.
514?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Meara, you're up.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. It looks really looks very forward-thinking. What's the building construction horizon on this? So if all your approvals were done tomorrow, what's the plan to go and start actually putting shovels in the ground here?
Well, as you know, in Midtown, there's a number of different components in terms of larger moves that have to occur. We're looking at the first phase being at the northeast corner of or northwest corner of the site, where we can provide access directly to South Service Road and start to provide for that component. Overall, I'd say each building would take 3 to 5 years, depending on the size of the building and the construction of timing that way. And then we also have, obviously, some of the off-site components. But we're looking to try to advance that as quickly as possible, that first phase, which would be a purpose-built rental building.
So each building 3 to 5 years, you're not telling me 14 buildings at 5 years would take as long to build that then, are you?
No, there's going to be some time where there's a lot of overlap that happens. I'm just saying that initially, because of all the various pieces that we have to put together, you're probably looking about a delivery in about 5 years.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for the presentation. This is very European-looking design, which is encouraging. It's nice to see that. I just have a couple questions with respect to the I know aggressiveness isn't the word, but the complexity of what you're presenting today. How do you actually achieve that in the context of our existing municipal financing framework and the laws around strata parks and things like that? How are you going to achieve that? Because there's a lot of infrastructure you're building in there, whether it's underpasses or bridges or whatever. Who's going to pay for that? How is that going to be maintained? Because certainly any condo corporation that's going to come after the developer's done is going to say, we can't afford this. And I'm talking about the infrastructure, I'm talking about that public, the GE building, how, you said that's going to be for community use. Who's going to fund that going forward? Are you expecting the municipality to take the responsibility for that going forward? Is that the expectation?
I haven't talked to my clients about that, but in terms of the
We
long
can
term.
commit to it right
but,
now,
But
we're
I see it, again, it was through your worship, the question about the framework in terms of community benefits and how we've worked through that. And so we see that that is a portion that would be renovated, built out, and as part of the community benefit package that would go with the process. Obviously, once that's turned over to the municipality, the municipality would obviously maintain things, but the initial fit out, in my experience, for in-kind contributions like that, it's a fit out process worked through with staff, implemented, and then there's a turnover period to the municipality.
So the expectation would be that, for example, that heritage building would become the property of the municipality and be maintained by the municipality.
That could be a possibility, or it could be a lease arrangement, as a long-term lease arrangement. I've seen those as well. And so those are the discussions we still have to have. But the intent is that that becomes a vibrant community space.
Yeah, I've been around this table a long time, and one of the things that I've seen, over the 25 years I've been here is this constant stream of projects that look great at this juncture. So when they come to council and they're trying to present this, we get these great color pictures and great, touchy-feely presentation about, what this is going to look like, and kids playing and romping in parks with kites, but it doesn't often come to fruition. This is one of the more optimistic, or what, I can't think of the word at the moment, but it's one of the more ambitious, that's the word I was looking for, one of the more ambitious ones I've seen. So I'm concerned about your ability to be able to deliver on that, on the expectations around the municipality and the existing taxpayers of Oakville to take responsibility for that. So I would ask that staff have a really sharp pencil when it comes to looking at that aspect of this, to see how that, because this is probably going to set some new standards, or at least test our ability to be able to manage that going forward. But it looks great from the beginning. It looks very exciting, very European.
And just on that note, just to finish off that conversation. So my client is Rose Corporation, has been developing for the last 40 years. If you look at any of the renderings that they've produced as part of their development approvals, and you look at the final project, they pretty much match. There is some little differences here and there because of on-site conditions, but generally, they build what they say.
At this scale, though?
Dan? Yeah, well, it's one building at a time as we go through it, but at this scale, the vision is that we implement this overall master plan.
Can you forward some links to other developments so we can see some of those other projects that you've been involved in?
Yes, I can get my client to do so.
Thank you, Worship.
And then, again, the 1 meter soil depth that I have been allowed to say here is honestly quite essential. The second thing, because I hear you, and it is going to be complex. So one of the things that we already studied in a smaller detail is how will this work, because we are having, there's different land ownerships, and we are doing that we have that issue in our Toronto projects as well. So how do you design the landscape so it's also more clear, because what we don't want is that it's visible with the land ownership when it's built, right? So that's all, there are already some plan diagrams and thinking behind that, because maintenance has a mega influence.
It's going to be in the ownership piece now, but also in the ownership piece in the future, because those buildings will all become separate entities, I imagine, or in clusters, there'll be entities, condo corporations. So how does that maintain going forward?
So I can't give you all of the answers, but that's already been part of the consideration because of the type of design.
It's going to be a fascinating process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And keying off of that, I don't believe that we have the ability to control or regulate tenure, but what tenure does your client have in mind for these buildings?
So my client does both rental as well as condominium. They anticipate, given the market conditions today, that they were looking at the first building or two as being purpose-built rental. They have a number of ongoing projects today that are purpose-built rental that are under construction. And they've been working with the municipalities. They did an extensive project up in Newmarket that I was involved with them, working with the region of York and the town of Newmarket and CMHC to provide for the mechanisms to make that function. And they're doing similar activities in Toronto. And so they're going to be bringing that expertise to Oakville, at least for this initial phase. If the market changes a bit further and condos come back, then obviously they're quite willing to look at that as well. So, but they've advised the first set of building, at least one, if not many more, in the first phase will be rental.
Thank you for that. We turn now to Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, through Mayor Burton. Thank you for the presentation. And I find it very interesting based on the fact you're talking about Copenhagen, because in another life I did work in another country, and like, what has changed? Last I heard, and I checked recently again, Copenhagen is still basically 5 to 8 stories. There are some 10 to 12. You won't find any 35 to 48 stories. They ensure light, air, and community space. They're not into vertical silos. They make schools, childcare, infrastructure, it's mandatory. Also our jobs, employment, and it has to be transit ready. And here you are telling me something I'm hearing, I think, totally different. And as Councillor knows, it sounds very European, but it is not Copenhagen as I know it. What's wrong here?
I don't think there's anything wrong, and I get it. I think, without offending you, that the difference between Toronto, Oakville, or Copenhagen is we have history. That's why we are not. My house is from 1876. It's not even listed. It's just a house in Copenhagen. I don't own a car. I only bike to work, and I'm a business owner of 130 employees. But it's the fastest way to get to work. And I just dress properly if it snows or rain. And those areas are there, and that's what I love. That's why I will never leave Copenhagen. But there are also new developments, and they are in specific areas. And
in Copenhagen?
In Copenhagen, yes.
Oh, okay.
And especially around the harbor right now, there is a very different density. What I feel that we are accomplishing in those areas is that it starts with the urban renewal. That, again, there is density, and then there is the thing that happens in between the density. And that's actually often the biggest influence on the quality of life. And I think what we are trying to do with this master plan is to we've reorganized. You can see that it looks very different because we studied the terrain, we studied the flow, we looked at the district, and then we reorganized and shuffled things around according to that. We wanted people to be able to walk all around the area, and then that's why you're walking under the highway. That's why there's a bridge across it. It looks like that because we wanted to accomplish a certain type of urban renewal. Is it a Copenhagen style or not? I think it's the right style anywhere you are, that you start with that approach, and the cars are underground and not visible, for instance. So these things is something that we cherish.
Okay, so but you do agree it's absolutely different than Copenhagen, basically.
Sorry, what?
The proposal is here is absolutely different than what is in Copenhagen.
In what sense? I mean, in terms of the new development, the new developments, I don't think it's that different. I mean, if that's what you're meaning, there is in the old parts of Copenhagen, it is obviously very different from this, but we are also having high-rise developments with urban spaces in Copenhagen now.
Okay, well, I'll check that out. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I can share links if
Can you
needed.
tell me what percentage of your personal parks are public, want to be public parks? I forget just exactly. It seemed to me it was mainly a personal, they were all basically POPs.
Was it?
So we're looking at about, I'm just looking at here, if I do my math correctly, we're about 17% public parkland, and the remainder is a mixture of POPs and strata parkland.
Have you got that in hectares?
No, I've got it in square meters, but for example,
I can
block.
convert that, sorry.
Yeah.
I can dig it out, but I thought if you had it there, oops, sorry.
Yeah, so for example, on block 3, for example, we have 13.2% or 3870 square meters of strata parkland, 1,603 square meters or 5.5% of POPs, and then 2,697 square meters or 9.2% as public parkland in that one block.
Okay. So in this almost 7,000 small area, there are no school sites at all for children?
Right now, we don't have any planned at this point in time. The school board did look at a site in the immediate area. So I don't want to deride my friends at the school board, but their thinking is they want a 5 to 7 acre, single-story, maybe 2-story school site in the middle of an urban intensification area. That's their viewpoint. And so that is, it does not work in terms of that old school thinking in terms of a public park in an urban intensive area. Whereas, there is opportunity and there are examples where school boards have introduced urban school sites within intensification areas and are working quite well. So there is a differential of what the school boards are looking for versus the reality of building within an intensification area. Having said that, we're waiting for the comments to come through, and so we'll have to see what they say about our new plan. Obviously, their site was to the west of these lands.
Okay. And as far as employment, and then there's others also want to talk, I'm sure, but as far as employment numbers on that site?
So right now, on the current plan, we have about 100,000 square feet of non-residential space on the current concept. So that would, depending on the mix, you're looking at one job for every 250 square feet for office ranges, but that's on average, and one job for every 400 square feet of retail service commercial. So I don't think we've broken it down that way in terms of the numbers. I can quickly do some math and get back to you, but
okay.
That gives you the sense of the general population of employment.
Okay, so really it's very limited employment then, based on, almost 7,000 units.
And the reality is that we've tried to face the streets with as much retail and service commercial uses. Right. Obviously, if the office market changes, that could affect the outcome of the various buildings that come forward in terms of if there's a demand for those things.
Okay, anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate the information tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haslett-Deal.
I'll be brief because I'd like to ask most of my questions after the delegations. I just want to make sure there are some signature features, and I think you've touched on them already, but one is the taking the GE Heritage Building, turning it into community space. One is doing something underneath the overpass. Is there any other signature feature you wanted to just speak to?
So we also have the bridge feature at the south end over the street,
cool.
which is also a little not normal in terms of proposition. And what the other component is, we've incorporated, as you saw on the diagrams, a mixture of various open spaces. So at the south end, we're looking at kind of a more urban face, and we've incorporated retail and service commercial facing that space to really activate it. So I think that is a very interesting component versus just having a plain Jane park with nothing else activating it other than which was on the previous plan. I think we're really trying to activate all of the spaces throughout the design.
So thank you for highlighting that.
If I can may add, it's also about the diversity between them. So it's not just the numbers of them. I think that's how you will secure the community again, that you can go and hang and play street basket somewhere. You can be more culturally interested if you are around the heritage building, that you can go shopping or feel like there's more quiet places. Obviously, when you are around the residential buildings inside the courtyards, you're gonna behave differently as well, because somebody lived there, but it's still public accessible, and it actually just means people behave a bit differently. It's more safe and quiet. So our hope is that there is as many different characters and atmosphere as possible, because that's actually what makes it interesting to live there.
So somebody asked you to share links of work that Rose Corp had done, but could you share some of the work or links of the work you have done, sir?
I would love that. Yes, I would love to share.
Okay, I think that that's important for people to see, that the expertise you bring, no matter where you are and live in the world, what you're trying to bring to Oakville is something that you believe represents a great future for that community. I'll leave it there, Mayor Burton, if I know that there's delegations.
Well, you have other councillors as well. Councillor Giddings?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, you talked about bringing a Copenhagen approach, and you talked about bringing nature to the buildings and sustainability, resiliency, excellence in architecture, transit supportive, all great stuff. Are you at a point yet in terms of bringing that to the construction of the buildings, in terms of energy efficiency, best practices?
At this point, no, in terms of this specific project. But my clients, again, work across the GTA and Ontario on a number of projects and implementing environmental standards. And as well, changes to the building code have improved energy efficiency that we have to meet as well. But we're all bringing those things, and we will bring those things together as we move through the process.
So working towards the OBC
and greater,
and
possibly.
beyond?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And then I think the big thing that we should also discuss is biodiversity as part of the sustainability approach, and this is certainly something we promise to provide. We are an interdisciplinary design studio, so we already start looking at what kind of native species are needed and already growing around Oakville, so we can contribute, because the birds don't live in Oakville, they just fly, they don't know any cities, they just fly around. So if we can contribute to the biodiversity beyond the site boundary, and that's an approach, so it will not just be green plantings, it will actually be trees and plants that support the existing fantastic plantings in Oakville.
And habitat for more raccoons and coyotes.
I think they are very exotic, but it's also because I'm
We would be willing to send you all of ours. All right, well, that seems to have taken care of council's needs for the moment. Councilor Haslet-Thiel has reserved a request to interrogate you again later. We'll stand you down for now, and Mr. Clerk, would you call our registered delegations?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I believe we have Douglas McCurgan.
Welcome, Mr. McCurgan. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm sort of overwhelmed by what I've heard tonight so far. It's like drinking from a fire hose. Anyway, can I have the first slide, the next slide, please? I guess I should have said that I'm here delegating on behalf of Trafalgar Chartwell Residents Association. These are the topics that I'm going to cover briefly. Our principal concern is that the the proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, plan of subdivision, all of those considered as a whole, do not align completely with Oakville's Midtown vision. And I'm not saying that's the case. That's our anxiety, that at the end of the day, we have a Midtown vision which is not aligned with what ends up being built or permitted. So we are committed to the idea of a single Oakville official plan which applies to the whole of Midtown without exception. And, you know, it's possible, I concede that that may be a naive view, but that really is the residents' view. We've gone through so much work to collectively to come up with an official plan, an amendment to the official plan for Midtown, which has been approved. We understand has been approved by Oakville and the residents in Oakville. We understand it hasn't been approved yet by the province. We understand that it'll have to evolve over time. Changes will be made to it, improvements, etc. But at this point, as we're starting out the development of Midtown, it seems to us very important that we apply the Oakville official plan if and when it gets approved to the whole of Midtown. So if I could have the next slide, please. This just elaborates on our concerns, and it also talks to our confusion. The Oakville official plan amendment for Midtown has not yet been approved, and what changes to it may be mandated. So there's huge uncertainty around the official plan amendment. Then we've just, before this item on the agenda, we talked about the new housing policies. How are they going to impact OPA 70 and this development? The South Service Holding Corporation and Town of Oakville, from our point of view, appear to be planning for this development in good faith, but absent regulatory certainty, which raises questions in our minds about risk. The public meeting report lists 23 matters under review, and every one of them seems to us to be significant. So bottom line is that compromise on OPA 70 and its associated community planning permit system, which hasn't yet been defined or developed, seems to us dangerous and just compounds uncertainty. And that can't be good for any of the stakeholders. As a separate issue, I guess driving our whole thinking in this right from the beginning is we completely accept the need to develop Midtown, to intensify, to take advantage of Midtown as a principal growth area in Oakville. But we're seeking a complete community. And we don't understand how it's going to happen, but we see the need for the hard infrastructure and the soft infrastructure to be synchronized with development. And we don't know how that's going to happen. There seem to be so many players. The comments earlier about the school board, it sounds like they're not cooperating. We know Metrolinx hasn't been cooperating. So we have an anxiety about the impact on property taxes. Who's going to end up paying for all of this? If I could have the next slide, please. This is just a slide from the last time that we talked about this, that we delegated. It's just a graphic from our February 2025 delegation. And the key issue that we have is density. And I appreciate what, forgive me, I can't remember our guest from Denmark's name, but I get the point that density is not the only metric. But from us as residents in the surrounding areas, it's the impact of the density on us that we're concerned about. Traffic, congestion, use of amenities. So I think it's worth just remembering that we're talking about a significant amount of density, whichever way we slice it. Could I have the next slide, please? I just wanted to, I thought it was worth comparing the two visuals. And I like what please tell me your name. Rasmus. Sorry. I liked Rasmus's description of the new vision, the new idea. But it does leave me wondering where the playground, where the playing fields are. In this visual, it seems to suggest that the hydro corridor is going to turn into playing fields, and that's great if we've got commitments from hydro that can happen. My concern, our concern, would be this is just an idea and it doesn't materialize, and where are the kids going to play? So if I could go on, and I think it's worth noting the absence of the railroad crossover and connector to Cornwall in this new image. I understand that's scheduled for later. And can I have the last slide, please? So to recap, we applaud the South Service Holding Corporation and the town of Oakville. They're working together on something that's extremely difficult and absent regulatory certainty. So forgive us, but we're a little bit skeptical. I would say that it's worth capturing the idea that Councillor O'Meara was pushing on, which was flexibility. So we don't have regulatory certainty, and we appear not to have flexibility to respond to abrupt market changes. And then I want to reiterate that our position is that this private OPA must be brought into alignment with the Oakville OPA 70. The town must have a single approved master plan for Midtown, which applies without exception to all of Midtown. Our goal is a complete community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCurgan. Mr. Clerk, the next delegation.
James Goodfellow.
Mr. Goodfellow, welcome. Council looks forward to your presentation.
Well, thank you. It's good to see all you folks again. And let me say that I admire your stamina. I mean, here we are this time of night, and you're trying to absorb this material and listen to us, and then keep it. You know, I'll try and be as brief as I can, and but I really admire what you guys do. Okay, so let's go to first slide. Next slide, please. Okay, start off with 2 thumbs up to the last presentation. I think it's on the right direction. I like what we see, the kind of thing. Certainly, because on the surface, and Councilor Nola, your points, you know, but it looks like we're contributing to the objective that we're all trying to do, is build a livable community here, kind of thing. Really like the parkland compared to one other application that we're dealing with. But as Doug said, we are concerns about the density, and a great question, Mayor Burton. I think the answer still needs work to your question on the thing, and so I would say as we go down the road, is the density and height look too high. And what we liked with the OPA was the orderly transition, that there was this, how you created the precincts and you built up the FSI, so you built up towards the high density pieces, and we're chipping away at that. And so that's a concern, but you know, this is the time, this is pass that comment on to the team, and look forward. And by the way, also, I do understand you mentioned the word business case. I do understand the business case issue, but get your pencils out. Okay, next slide. Here's the thing that struck me as I went through the thing. Was I prepared this little chart here to try and compare the 3 projects that are in front to help my own understanding. And of course, and I try to highlight in yellow through the key pieces. First is the land size between, then population estimates, and I used a PPU of 2, okay? Because at my age, I can still multiply by 2, sort of. But it's a reasonable thing. So I used a PPU of 2. That gives you the population estimates. It's, you know, 14,000-ish. And look, 14,000 on both. And we've been spending all this time on the TOC application, and we now have another application coming out with the exact same number of, but of course, the density is a lot better because they're working with 11 hectares of land, whereas a friend's quote, they're working with 4.9. So the density is much more in line, but it's high. And it's way over the density minimum set forth in the provincial planning statement. As I was listening to the presentation tonight, I worked out one other statistic, which is along the lines with the new project of how do we get Councillor Haslett-Thiel to heaven. Okay, so and that means we have to look at dividing, what was it, units by hectares, right? Okay, so if you take the first column, divide units by hectares, you get 1,404. Now, what was the target we were talking about? 51 to 181. So, okay, go to column 2, it's 924. Go to column 3, and it's 631. So on that basis, Councillor, we have work to do to get you to heaven. Okay. Okay. So all of which comes to that this is, you know, that just shows how outrageous the first column is. Well done to the folks here, but you got work to do, and I have no idea what to do with the middle column. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I then took the numbers, this population, and plunked them on a map, and said, well, what does that say? Because one of the things, and here's a theme that I want to try and build on a little bit, is that you can take so we have Same number of people being slotted in up there in service roads, same number of people going, if you were to buy into column number 1. And as was pointed out, is very few people are going to work in the South Service Road application. So they're all going to be marketed, you know, and you can just see the marketing materials for everybody. It's going to be walk to the GO station, get to the GO station, transportation access. So now you've got all, and we've been freaking out on the TOC application. So now you've got this coming on track, and all of that issue about what's the level of investment infrastructure to fix all of this kind of thing, and how do we ensure that the aforementioned Metrolinx comes to the table and does their, because this is just going to overwhelm them, you know, so like huge issues here. Okay, and the key feature for going into, when you go into sales mode here, the key feature is going to be access to GO station, access to the QEW, because that's what you're going to. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, these are the two charts that show all of the filings. The top thing is really what I want to say. Lots of filings, but no construction. Okay, and of course the questions of what is the hard and soft infrastructure, and the ongoing question, Councillor Elgar, before you grill me on it, will the growth pay for growth? And what's the shortfall? Which you've already asked. Okay, that's the next question. Next slide. Doug McCurgan's pretty well covered this. Growth, you know, we urgently need OPA 70 to get approved. You know, next month, 1 month from yesterday, on February 18th, was when you approved OPA 70, and it's been sitting at Queen's Park for now almost a year. Now, I don't know, Mayor Burton, is that typical for what they do or not? But I think the task now is we got to land this thing. And so I know that you and Minister Crawford have meetings with them. I know you got this underway, but boy, oh boy, we got to deliver this. And we got to deliver it in a way, because it's piecemeal planning of application by application, sorting out Midtown. I believe, just as an outsider, we just need that overall plan. And to get everybody playing by the same rules and a level playing field for everybody. So that's it. So I think we can skip over that. As we go to the next one. We talked several times about people here on the purpose of the transformation of the condo market. Okay. And the chart on the thing, the Urban Nation chart out of their September report, the two graphs, the top graph is sales and the bottom graph is buildup of inventory. There's your problem. Sales are falling through the roof and inventory is building up. The projects are being canceled, and you can see this happening right now with the two projects you have in front of you. You know, District, their strategy for coping with this is push off start, push the date out, we'll hope the market returns, and we're going to run our same playbook with our same business model. These folks come in with another and say, we're going to start out, we're going purpose-built rental. Okay? So different playbook, different business model. Go to the next slide. So I tried to said what could make sense out of this. So I thought about sailing. Okay, so I don't know you sailors. Okay, so what the sailing is, sailing starts with the starting line. All the boats go in the water. They all muck around in the background. And the objective is to hit the line, hit the starting line at the right time at full speed. That's what's happening now. Except the wind, you know, in the sailing race, the wind's gone. Okay, there's no wind. So now the boats are all taking around. They say, what the heck are we going to do? And some are going to say, Dan, well, we're just staying with our old thing. You know, others, restructurings, people are being canceled. So the boats are trying to sort themselves out. Except that the difference with this is we don't know when the starting gun is going to start, i.e. the market recovers. And when it does recover, there's no official announcement by Stats Canada saying the game is on. Okay, and I think the key to remember in here too is that what is the big change? This is a market transformation because the key driver here is the investor that financed over 50% of the condos has left the game. So who's going to replace him? Unanswered question. Okay. So
Well,
now, as I'm
thank you
getting
for squeezing all that into your 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just there. Last slide. Funny you should mention that. I can see you just getting ready to pounce on me. Okay, so next slide is quote from Yogi Berra, great business strategist and catcher for the New York Yankees. The future ain't what it's going to be, what it used to be. This is a new future. And so, Councillor O'Meara, your point about flexibility, now is the time not to lock into past business models in the hope that they come back. The plan is to embrace flexibility. And if I have one thing to leave you with, it's risk analysis. In times of a changing market, is you need to understand the risks and what does that mean. And in every single application, these folks tonight, you asked the question, what is the risk analysis? The risk analysis, not just to the developer, the financer, but to all of the stakeholders. Same thing with, we've been hounding on the district people. Where's the risk analysis? And I think you as a council also think about what's your broader assessment of the risk of the market. You've had some good work. The Barry Lyons work sets a good stage for this. But you should really embrace and be calling for, a comprehensive risk analysis on every project. And I'll just leave you with the one example because I was at the local advisory committee meeting on the for the revised TOC. I pressed this question, said, where's the comprehensive risk for a project of this size and complexity? One would expect to see and they said, well, we have done an internal risk assessment, but of course it's confidential, can't be shared with you. Wrong answer.
Jim, you need to wrap up.
Okay, so with that message, thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Before you run, Councillor Elgar has a question for you.
I tried to escape.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate what you're saying. Do you have any closing comments you'd like to make that we haven't heard yet? I'm serious. I'm serious.
A little compensation will be in your chambers later, sir. No, I think that was really what I wanted to do, was to build to a point of saying that this is a unique period in time with this change, with the changes and it's not just a dip in the market. This is a transformation in the market, I believe, and so that requires new thinking, and it requires really careful attention to what is the impact of that on all the constituencies. Because as soon as they said that to me at the LAC meeting, I said, okay, you've assessed the risk to the province and to the provincial taxpayer. But what if your risk assessment says there's no risk to us because you're offloading everything to the real estate taxpayer? Well, where's that? So you need to have that assessment. If this happens, how many of those little boats are going to sink? How many, or who's going, and what does that mean to us? And I don't know. It's just unanswered to me.
Well, thank you very much, and I'd like to get a copy of your presentation.
I think it's.
We already have it.
Think you have it?
I don't, and I want to make sure I get it.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
You. Thanks. Thank you.
You folks will send.
Appreciate it.
We've got it. Okay. Yeah.
And
okay.
That's why we have it for him. All right. Mr. Clerk, next delegation.
Next we have Anya Dunning.
Ms. Dunning, welcome. Thank you for your patience. We look forward to your information.
Good evening, Mayor Burton and councillors. If I can put my presentation up. Okay, so I'm here on behalf of the Oakville Lakeside Residents Association, and we have a few comments we'd like to put forward on the South Service Holding Corporation. Okay, next slide. So these are basically the proposals: 14 high-rise towers, 35 to 48 stories. Only 2 of them are actually lower than 40 stories. 10 mixed-rise buildings, 6945 units. It's got a gross FSI. We had 5.16. I know they said 5.14. And the breakdown is 60% one bed, 30% 2 bedrooms, and 10% 3 bedrooms. Now, next slide, please. The best element in this entire is that the developer has clearly put an enormous focus on elements of livability, including trying to establish as much park as possible, albeit most of it is strata park. This shows that even at high density with an enlightened developer, the area can be made as attractive and livable, which should serve as an object lesson for the Midtown TOC proposal. You can see in this picture, we've got lots of landscape, lots of green space, but what we still see are some underlying problems is that there's still some work to be done. The density is still above OPA 70. If you assume a PPU of 2 per unit, you end up with an estimate of 13,890 people on this land. Combine that with the population estimate of the 13,762 people for the TOC, and you basically have almost 28,000 people, which is 80% of the intended population of Midtown in just 2 developments. We would like to know what the developer can do to bring his density back down in line with OPA 70. Then we want to talk about the unit size. The proposal is for 60% 1 bedrooms. I'm going to go back to the 2025 Oakville Housing Needs Assessment Report. And in this report, the experts said, and I'm quoting them directly, most of the purpose-built rental supply in the town as of 2024 was 2 bedrooms or less, 88.6%. As such, the demand for more family-sized rental units is expected to increase over the next 10 years. This project has a 20-year time horizon, so the demand for family-sized rental units is only going to increase. Again, according to the report, the projected need includes, for Oakville, is only 12% 1 or fewer bedrooms units, 35.5% 2-bedroom units, and 52.3% 3 or more bedroom units. You've noticed that when they did their comparison, they took out 2 towers. They went from 16 to 14, but they only lost 19 units. So the only way you're going to cram in almost the same number of units is you're going to downsize them. And I think maybe the lesson here is that the developer could go back and rejig or look at what the market wants. We know that Oakville's looking for larger family-size units. If you remember correctly, Liam Rondu spoke to the town in mid-December, and he talked about the TOC from a young person's perspective. That clip has been viewed over 51,000 times on Instagram and Facebook, and there have been hundreds of comments, and they have almost all been completely positive with people who agree with his sentiment. Okay, the TOC proposal was 66% 1-bedroom or studio, and this one really isn't that much lower. So the shortfall is in family-size units. We don't really need the investment-type studio or 1-bedroom properties. And even for the elderly that want to downsize, they don't necessarily want 1-bedrooms, right? They want to be able to have their grandkids over. I know my mom lives in Bronte with a 2+ convertible den so the grandkids can come over. So I think that rejigging maybe the configuration of the percentage of single units versus the 3 bedrooms is something that's worth looking at. We're wondering if what the developer can do to bring the unit sizing more in line with market demands. Again, you've got the tall towers, and they're very, very closely spaced together. And the question is, can the market absorb this number of units? Next slide, please. So again, this is just a brief overview of, you've got your 12 towers over 40 stories. It's a massive high-rise development, and it's not in context with Oakville and the neighborhood. Next slide, please. Okay. As we review and seek to understand development proposals and the financial drivers behind them, it becomes increasingly clear that many developers are attempting to make outdated high-rise development models work in today's high-cost environment by simply adding more units and increasing density. We respectfully ask the proponent to reconsider this approach. There's an opportunity to be more imaginative, to move beyond tired and conventional models, and to pursue a development solution that is better suited to this site and to Oakville. So just going through some of these things, right? The suburban residents in general prefer low or mid-rise to live in. Families prefer playground and green space to be easily reachable for their children, especially if you've got kids, you want to be able to let them go safely. If you don't have, if you go back to the sort of courtyard Denmark type model, you can feel safe letting your children run out into that space. But you have a massive, suburban place that's, you've got no supervision. It just means that, parents are going to be less likely or less willing to let their kids run out and play outside on their own. And then you've got most of Midtown. The location is really unattractive because it's beside one of the busiest highways in the GTA. Other developments are away from the noise and the pollution, and they're much more attractive. So will we be able to build and sell this number of units? Okay, we know that the market's slow. This has got a 20-year time horizon, okay? And I'm gonna circle back to the provincial goal that people keep forgetting, and that was the faster part, okay? The province's mandate was to build homes faster, and I'm not sure that the 20-year horizon is going to help with that part. As I said, the first building's gonna be at least 5 years away. So we've got a long time to wait for this to come. The whole beautiful green space and being connected can't happen until all of those towers are built. So again, you're going to move into a place that doesn't have all of the things that you want until it's completed at the very end. So to summarize, the vision for landscaping amenities is praiseworthy, and we applaud the developer for their vision and intent, but we consider the density to be above OPA 70 and therefore too high. The tall tower form doesn't match the suburban context and does not present what the market wants. We understand the financial and cost pressures of a major project such as this, but we ask the developer to please explore alternative development forms that would be more livable, less dense, and still financially viable. And I think I've got one more slide there. And Duncan Galloway couldn't be here tonight, but he did take the time to sort of design an alternative courtyard form that was sort of 10 to 12 stories with a continuous noise barrier along the north side to achieve the same FSI and the same number of units, just to show that it actually can be done. It was too complex to actually present, but if anybody wants it, I can send it along. And that's it.
Thank you very much. We'd be very glad to see that if you wanted to send it along.
Yep.
Council, any questions?
Well, I was going to say I'd like to see it, so thank you for sending it to us.
Yeah, we can send that along. Okay, any other
Thank
questions?
you. That's not- All right, the next delegation? Is there anyone else in the audience tonight who wants to share their thoughts on this? Then I'll confine it to table, and we'll turn to Councillor Hazlett-Thiel for another round.
Thank you. So I have just a couple questions for staff. Could you just clarify for us, in this proposal, it is dependent on significant infrastructure. Do you have an assessment of what percentage the taxpayer would pay versus what would be contributed by the developer?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mayor, we do not have that financial analysis complete yet, but I've noted that in my notes as something to bring back for you at a later date.
Right, thank you for that. Can you just comment, we saw a note from CN Rail, is the hydro corridor a viable option for play space along, which isn't this applicant's property, but has always been considered an option? I just want to know, is it an option?
Understood. Through you, Mayor, through the basically analysis and circulation of the application, we are going to work with CN to determine if that is something that they would be supportive of. There's also multiple different landowners within that vicinity, so safety and security utmost. So it's something that we'll look at holistically, and we will bring that back at a later date as well.
Okay. Also, when you come back, can you just, recognizing that this is an application against the Livable Oakville plan, and the key question tonight is, could it be in conformity to OPA 70? could you help us understand community permit planning and how the parkland that's being provided and possibly the community space in the Heritage Building, would that fall under potential contribution through community permit planning?
Thank you for that question. Through you, Mayor. There is a potential for that to happen. I think you know, the community planning permit system is very complex, and we still have some matters we need to get to as part of that system, and the community benefits, and ultimately one of the matters that I heard today is the community benefits that being provided appropriate for the level of development. And I think that's something that we can bring back.
Can you also confirm for us what evaluation would be done on the noise level? So I've heard that the landscaping will dampen noise, but when you come back, could you comment on whether or not there's any additional things that you would suggest on noise? And my other question is around, and it goes actually to the developer, so if one of you would like to answer it. Was there any consideration to more mid-rise in your design?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and to Councillor Haslett-Thiel as well, and to Council, thank you for having us tonight. There is consideration absolutely for you know, all levels of development. There's been some great questions about the type of development we've put forward here tonight, and I would say that, you know, we're a reasonably open book company. I think those of you who have met us, and if you speak to other regions and municipalities, you'll find that we're pretty open book about what we're trying to achieve. You know, we have our profitability targets, and we're trying to come up with feasible development, and that's basically what our goal is. So in terms of mid-rise development, it's been a very large challenge for us to try to come up with a development that would work in the mid-rise realm. So we have looked at it, but it isn't something that we have found feasible to date.
And what would be sacrificed if you did? Because it sounds like you've done some modeling. Did you have anything that would be sacrificed if you went to the mid-rise model?
I think the way that our planner and Rasmus described in terms of having the density appropriate to support the work at the ground level, I think, you know, I don't usually take these questions myself up here, so I just got to relax a bit. This is, you know, we're on camera here, YouTube, and the whole world here. So we do this for a living. I should be able to cover this topic. So I'll just back up and just start again. You know, to be honest, like, you know, we model our developments. You know, we put them through our financial feasibility model. We look at all aspects. There's a lot of moving parts. What we really try to do is come to a municipality and see what they're looking for and do our best to achieve their goals and try to achieve our goals. You know, we think that good development actually can be financially feasible and profitable to the extent that it needs to be for private developers, and we do everything we can to work with government, whether it's at the national, provincial, regional, or municipal level to make it happen. So what we've done in the past is we open up our books to a great extent and just show how the numbers work. And when we look at our you know, the model and the type of units and the mix of units and the sizes of the units, the bottom line is the bottom line. And so we have spent time working on models, not only here, but on other developments. And the proof is in the pudding. You see what has happened. I know that there have been comments tonight that the model may no longer work, where there are high-rise, and we understand, you know, we understand that perspective. We're certainly open to show the residents groups and council, what, you know, in terms of numbers, how it works and why it hasn't worked, and why we think this will work.
So 2 last questions. How do you see your plan integrating with your neighbors to immediately to the west. There is a potential school that's in your urban design brief, possible. Those all have to be worked through, it sounds like. But holistically, how do you see it integrating with what is in OPA 70 in terms of a complete community?
We're, you know, as our planner said earlier, we have been in discussions with the school board. They have, the school board representatives we've talked to have, to date, they're on a piece of property that actually has an office building on it with a parking lot right now, as I'm sure you're aware. And so we don't have control over the timeline on that development. We're open to work with our neighbors and consider all options, but you know, we don't have control of that property. And so I'm not sure what, you know, what influence we could have in terms of the timing. It's also important to note that the timing of this development is going to be over many years, decades. You know, the population will be entering the community, you know, over 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so in terms of the population and the need for schools, you know, we will be open along, you know, along that time frame to consider the school board's needs.
You have a helper behind you.
Well, no, I think, and I think it's also, first of all, thanks for I think we witnessed democracy, so I would like to applaud that and the process of that. I needed that. I'm in a devastating moment in my own country right now, but anyway, it's about sharing the public realm. So it was a good question about where are the playgrounds. The playground should be where the kids need them to be, and the urban space should be linked so it also benefits the school kids, and they can go and hang and play street basket or skate under the highway bridge on that area. So we don't have all of the answers, but I love the question because they need to be made in consideration of what's happening around us and not just inside not even the plots, but actually the whole district. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Thank you very much. My final is, if there were provisions in an OPA that required you to provide sureties to the achievement of some of these amenities and the parkland, even if it exceeds beyond phase 1, are you open to that?
When you say sureties, in terms of what form of surety?
I'm not sure, okay. But something that gives us a bit of a guarantee that we're not going to open the doors to people without the park space that is immediately surrounding them, and that when you, because you can see how it will build out, but some folks, I'm not suggesting it would be you, would build it and they might get around to the park space or the playground, or I'm looking for a holistic commitment to delivering that piece. Is that something that because we normally would put a holding provision on, but does that make sense to you that you would have to deliver that the parkland and those amenities within that phase before you can open your doors?
I'm not going to say no, but I will say that we are open to the general idea of it, subject to industry standard. We certainly have provided sureties on all our developments. I'm trying to, in my mind, understand how I could overlay what we've done in the past onto what you just said, but certainly, we would consider. At the appropriate stage, committing to the appropriate level of amenities. This will be a block-by-block development. This is a lot of units. And although we think it's possible and we think that the vision we have is something that could come to fruition, and we've done developments, very similar types of developments in Pickering, Newmarket, and among others that we have on the books. So we've done this, but these take time. And so over time, and we're also doing a large development up north of Barrie as well. So these are developments that take many years to come to fruition, and we make commitments along the way. And we've been subject to holding provisions, we've been subject to surety bonds and LCs and that. So we're open to the discussion for sure.
So I just want to say thank you for saying that you're open. you've demonstrated that with Councillor Giddings and I. Thank you for going to Vancouver and taking a look at options that opened creativity. Thank you for reaching outside of the realm of the GTA to say what's possible. And thank you for making it feel like you care about what you're going to develop. I appreciate that.
Thank you for saying that. We really do appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you to the mayor and to the whole council for listening to us tonight.
Well, you're not done yet.
Oh, great.
Councillor Hazardeel, are you done? All right, then Councillor Knoll and then Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, Worship. I'll try to be brief because I know the hour is getting late, but I do have a couple questions. It was raised earlier and it's been raised over and over again, and that is the idea of unit size, particularly as it pertains to bedrooms, and the demand that's there that we've seen identified, that more rooms equals better quality of life, equals the ability to be able to accommodate families. Have you given any thought to changing that that number that you've established, and what would be the trigger to make that happen?
To be perfectly honest, we give a lot of thought. This is all we think about, how we can provide the housing that's needed in the market. That's what we're doing all day, every day. We work with industry professionals. You mentioned Urbanation. They're the industry, gold standard in data. We follow their suggestions. We try to achieve their suggestions, and we try to overlay it with what we understand the market to demand beyond that, forward-looking studies as opposed to past-looking studies. But we thought, generally speaking, the percentages of unit types, whether it's the 60, 30, 10 between ones, twos, and threes, it's pretty standard, and it's a high number of twos and threes relative to what we've seen in a lot of developments in the GTA recently. Would we do more? Absolutely, if we could. We've done large units in our new market development, ground-related townhomes, where there are 2 or 3 bedrooms. They're very expensive in today's market. It's a lot of square footage, and so it's a balance. You got to find the sweet spot, and you're also making decisions well in advance of delivery. And with a rental, in particular, you're not selling on plans where the person who bought it years before they get to see it are actually taking a lot of the risk. The rental developer takes all the risk, and then they wait till it's all built and hope they have the right unit mix and the right sizes and all the right amenities. So it's a very risky game, and so we really do rely heavily on our consultants and data and what the market will provide, and we also rely heavily on the government financing that's available from the federal government and generous municipalities like yourself to help bridge the gap in the pro forma to make the numbers work. So that's, it's a combination of all factors, but there's a lot of risk up front that we take.
I don't know where you read about this generosity, but anyway.
No?
Just
I was
kidding.
forward-looking. We were looking.
Just kidding. In those metrics that you're analyzing in terms of unit size, are you looking strictly at the condo market, or are you looking at purpose-built rental?
As much as we can look at the purpose-built rental market, we do, but most of the purpose-built rental in Ontario, other than the southeast part of Ontario, like London, everything sort of west of Guelph, east of Guelph, was built in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and pretty much stopped in the 80s when rent control came in. And so we don't have a lot of examples since the year 2000, but we do look at everything available, and every one of our market studies has a full condo rental study, because a good chunk of the condo market was rented, and there's good Urbanation data on that. And we also look at all the rental data as well.
Last question, and just this very short preamble. Are you familiar with the development? It's, I think, a 70s development in Scarborough, maybe, or East York. I can't remember. It's called Crescent Town. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not.
Crescent Town is this, when I first saw the drawing, I got this real vibe of Crescent Town, self-contained, homogeneous, like community of lots of recreational elements, retail, sort of self-contained kind of appeal, look to it, very European kind of thing. One of the things that Crescent Town has is they built a school right in the complex, and they lease it back to the Toronto District School Board. Is that something you'd consider, or have you ever considered something along that line to accommodate that very important soft infrastructure?
The first deal I ever looked at when I started at the Rose Corporation in 2004 was the North Toronto School development, which was built by Tridel on the site of the former football field or running field, running track, and they swapped. They put the building where the running track was, and then the old building became the new running track and field. And since then, I've lived in that community near Yonge and Eglinton, and my parents bought in that Tridale building, and my daughter went to high school in that building, and my nephew goes there now. So yeah, we've definitely thought about it, and we've seen it work. And as I think David mentioned earlier, it's a model that's being, I think I know of 2 other examples, at least in downtown Toronto, that are moving forward, I believe. So yeah, that's absolutely, and we've talked to the school board in Oakville, the Catholic school board, about the option to do an urban school if we have space. There's a lot of amenity space in the buildings.
I think that another amazing example is David Crombie Park. We have the honor. I had the honor to present that to David Crombie himself, who broke all of the rules as a mayor. And even though it's the 70s, it was so bold. And they are sharing a schoolyard as a public park, so it's completely activated. So in the daytime where nobody is there, is home, the kids go and play in the schoolyard, and then in the evening the community take over. It's pretty awesome, that development. Actually, it's still relevant to study.
Thanks for raising that, because I was trying to remember the name of that downtown development, because I remember that one as well, Crescent Town and David Crombie Park. And I apologize, I said this is my last question, but since you're standing there, and we're very fascinated with this Copenhagen experience, and I'm sorry about Greenland. The issue of unit size, how does Denmark deal with that, or European developments in terms of unit size? Because this seems very North American to me, this rabbit warren size condo / apartment building. It doesn't seem family oriented, and I think you guys seem to have a better handle on it.
It's more family oriented. I would say probably more variated also in Copenhagen, but we still also suffer from some of the same issues as you see here. And then we have a different. I work on Quayside. I worked on a project that was built for condo market, and then it's now built for actually affordable housing and purpose-built rental. And there's a whole learning from that one. I think it's also how you substitute that is a bit different from the way that we do it. But I think, maybe the variation could be a bit higher. The flexibility, again, there is a business case that needs to be fulfilled, but I think the word that you've all been saying, right, and you can even hear it from my client, that we are all sitting here, standing, guessing about the future. So I don't know how we make that agile process, but I think that's definitely needed.
Well, maybe make this the case study.
Yeah.
Talk to your clients. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, through Mayor Burton. Just a couple of quick questions. Can you give me the name of the developments you have in Pickering and in Newmarket?
So the Pickering development we started in 2005. It was called San Francisco by the Bay. As you drive across the 401, we had a partner there that was Grey Rock or Chestnut Hill Homes. And there was a series of low-rise townhomes that were first built on Fisherman's Bay, I think it's called. Then there was an initial 2 towers that were built as condo, and then we exited the deal at that point. We also owned the Art Thompson Arena, which is now called University City. But that whole thing was supposed to be a 7-year development, and it's now been a 25-year development. So at the time, we weren't the direct developer of that. So those are the 2 developments: University City and San Francisco by the Bay in Pickering. And then there's the deal in Newmarket is called. We call it the Bakerfield, but it's the overall district. We call it the Bakerfield District. It's on Davis Drive, right on the bus rapid transit. We built a 225-unit purpose-built rental. It was the first purpose-built rental built in York Region since the 80s. So it was about 40 years since the last one was built. And then we built 3 additional towers, totaling about 800 units over a period of about 10 years. Not quite 10 years. We started in 2015 and it was finished in 2023.
And how high are those towers?
They're 15, 15, and 10 stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and your architect from Copenhagen, it'd be good if you could take a look to try to be in more scale. I was looking at the tallest buildings they built recently in Copenhagen, and the highest one is 85 meters and 23 stories, from what I can find. I've got 3 more, but...
No, that sounds, especially for Resi, it's office, we can go higher, but yeah, in Copenhagen, it's, for me,
see if you can do something here too. Bring it down. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lischina.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the presentation as well. That was very enlightening. Given your experience, I guess a question to both with respect to these large type of developments with many high-rise buildings, and obviously you've heard how important public realm is, and it can only be really properly used if there's sunshine and wind doesn't take you away. So is there consideration into how those buildings are placed with respect to how much sun and perhaps wind mitigation in that area?
Yeah, so at this stage, because we are on a zoning level, but yes, the short answer is yes. We have, especially sun, obviously studied that, but we would need further investigation, especially when the massing is turning into architecture, to study wind as well, and how it affects. And the best example I can give you of that is probably Quayside again, that we are working on, where we are doing a community forest in Toronto on the waterfront, and that has been very much driven by exactly your good question about constantly showcasing a design link with microclimatic analysis and the right selection of tree species and the soil depth. I have to say that again. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's... Councillor Lischina, thank you. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, we had a public meeting early 2024, mid-2024, and the attendance wasn't nearly what we had hoped for. I think we had half a dozen residents out. There's no requirement for it, but given the dramatic change, would you be open to getting together with the community once again?
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Great stuff.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You mean like, okay. A non-statutory public meeting, you're saying? Yeah. Yes, we love those. If you'd like to. Sorry, David, it's up.
I'm glad you guys were able to come to such a quick agreement on that.
Sorry, just to point out, we, Councillor Hazlitt did introduce us to the residence groups. She's going to share the information, so we meet directly with them as well at the same time, in addition to any other non-statutory meetings.
It's all good, thank you. All right, I know of no more questions, and I will thank you guys for the work you did tonight and the public for the work that they did. And I will look for a mover and seconder for receipt. And that will be Councillor Chisholm and Councillor Giddings. And I'll ask if there's any objection. Mr. Clerk, there's no objection, so that carries. And now, as I said at the start of the meeting, I understand that council desires to go into camera for the item 6.1, which we moved to the end of the meeting. Let's see how fast we can get to 6.1. We have 2 more items before, 2 more items for this. The first is the recommendation report for the draft plan of subdivision application at 3275 Trafalgar Road. We have no delegations. We have staff on hand to answer questions. Council, you've studied this pretty carefully. Are you ready to make a decision? Councillor Adams, Councillor Elgar.
I just have a quick question for our staff. First of all, thank you for answering my question about the pedestrian crossing location. And the other is, thank you for confirming that you'll provide some further information about the FSI figures. And I wonder if you could just clarify for me, the 5.05 FSI that was included in the previous report, does that include all of the natural lands as well as the developable phase 1 and 2 lands?
Through the mayor to the councillor, that is correct. That's
Okay.
for the entire parcel of land.
So the actual block 1 and 5, I think it is, lands that are actually to be developed would actually be higher than 5.05.
Through the mayor to the councillor, that is correct.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate that.
Do we know what it is?
Lord Mayor, no, we don't. We haven't done that detailed analysis yet because OPA 321 removed some of the criteria for evaluating. And so that was, FSI was one of them, so.
All right, so Councillor Elgar?
Thank you, through Mayor Burton. Just in the report, the planning justification report, what I notice is circular transit in justification. Like they say, density is justified on the basis that it supports transit investment, while transit capacity is assumed rather than demonstrated. It's just words like that that kind of scare me going forward. You know, like I don't like when it's circular, it doesn't really say anything.
Through the mayor to the councillor, I'll take note of that for future reports.
Okay, I appreciate that. And about cumulative impact analysis, I noticed there's in planning justification, again, there's no cumulative impact. It's just, I guess it's one at a time, and I'm wondering whether that can cause problems later on.
Through the mayor to the councillor, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by cumulative impacts. The application that is being considered for council to make a decision is a draft plan of subdivisions, so the land uses have already been established through the implementing official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment that was approved in November.
Okay, so the traffic congestion isn't an issue. The only other thing is visitor parking. Is there an issue there?
Through the mayor to the councillor, we will be looking at the site plan, ensuring that there's sufficient visitor parking in accordance with the zoning bylaw that was amended. In terms of on-street parking, there won't be any permitted. That will be included in the warning clauses through the condition of subdivision approval.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Nanda?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. That was my first question about the visitor parking. We do have a huge parking issue in North Oakville. So the fact that there's going to be no street parking, we've seen in other areas that has caused issues where visitors have to park quite far away just to visit people in the area. So if we can look at that, that would be great. The other question I had was on the NHS, where you recommended that we secure it as soon as possible. Is that something that's going to happen before the development happens, or?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the subdivision has proposed to be phased, and that phase line secures as much of the natural heritage feature as possible. The Planning Act requires a certain amount of frontage on a remnant parcel, which is why it's delineated as it is in Appendix B.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the intention that we secure and have the lands conveyed in the first phase portion as soon as possible.
Okay. And then just on the FSI question, do you have any of the FSI for the neighboring developments that have already been completed?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I don't have those handy, but I will look into that and provide a response later this week.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, Councillor Adams.
My apologies. The question about the the visitor parking. Can we determine whether there are restrictions that would stop paid visitor parking? So the visitor parking that's included, can we ensure that it's not paid? So because paid visitor parking forces or pushes a bunch of the visitors onto adjacent streets and so forth.
Okay, through the mayor to the councillor, we will look at that through the site plan review of the mixed-use building along Trafalgar.
Okay, thank you.
All right, council, are we passing this? It's going to take a mover and seconder. Councillor Nanda, Councillor Knoll, thank you. Any? I didn't see your hand, Scott. So I took two volunteers first. We'll take Scott for Knoll. Any objection? Mr. Clerk, I'm seeing none, and that is carried. And that brings us to the town 8.2, the town-initiated official plan amendment 74 on the Parkway Belt West Plan designation. We have staff available for questions. Council, we've reviewed this extensively. Where are we going with it? Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, through Mayor Burton, to seeing the time of night. Based on what I see, Infrastructure Ontario requested a defined timelines for what the town would determine appropriate use, but there is no timeline yet. Is there a reason for that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, Infrastructure Ontario requested a defined timeline for when the town would determine the appropriate land use designation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the chair, through you, the chair, to the councillor. With regards to that answer for that question, they were asking for us if we were going to do specific land use designations for any of the parcels that do not have secondary land use designations. So that will happen on a site-by-site basis. We're not going to go over every single parcel and identify designations proactively for those particular items. So there's not a timeline associated with it. It's going to be an ad hoc situation unless there's a specific project for a specific area, in which case we might go forward with an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment with specific secondary designations at that time.
And Infrastructure Ontario are okay with that?
I haven't received any follow-up questions. As far as I'm aware, everyone seemed to be happy with our answers.
Okay. Very good. I have a few other things, but they're not as important. But the other one was Infrastructure Ontario noted the regional natural heritage system boundaries may be refined. Can you give me a little, is that going to re-happen? We could lose a little more of our regional natural heritage system? Is that a concern you have?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. There was no review of the regional natural heritage system boundaries through this project. As noted in the report, there will be a future official plan amalgamation project that consolidates all of the 3 current in effect plans. And through that process, there will be a natural heritage review, in which case we will do the technical work to look at the existing natural heritage system from the regional official plan, the natural areas in the livable Oakville plan, and make that project about that. So it will be technical work associated with it, and then we may revisit boundaries of the natural heritage system through that project as part of the consolidated, amalgamated new town official plan.
Okay, I thank you. I thank you very much. I'll be willing to move that at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Is there a seconder? Councillor Knoll, thank you. Is there more discussion? May I put the vote? Is there any objection to Councillor Elgar and Councillor Knoll's motion? Mr. Clerk, there's no objection, and that's carried. Now, we deferred that, and now we're going back to page 2. All right. So I have here a motion that will allow us to go into camera on this item. And I would just point out that we cannot pass a motion to proceed past the hour when we're in camera. And so if we...
I'll give you a motion.
I didn't want one.
I'll give you one. We want to get her done.
I was going to vote against the motion to extend the hour with my friend, Councillor O'Meara.
Come on. Come on, you guys.
Hey, maybe we could do something here.
Win yet, you know.
Okay, Councillor Elgar is within his rights to give us a motion to go past the hour, but he doesn't have a seconder. Oh, Councillor Giddings has cured that defect. Is there any objection to this motion? Well, it's close, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're not stopping this train. I declare that motion carried, and I'll strike a 5-minute technical break while we rig the chamber for a meeting closed to the public. Wait. We didn't move the motion to go into camera. All we did was extend the hour. So we need a mover and seconder for this. That council resolve into a closed meeting session for the purpose of discussing a Midtown update, a TOC Midtown update, and the reasons that we may do that in the absence of the public under Section 239, Sub 2 of the Municipal Act are that this deals with, one, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province, or territory, or a Crown agency, or any of them. A mover and seconder. Councillor Lischina, Councillor Hazlet-Thiel, thank you. Any objection? Mr. Clerk, there being no objection, that carries. And now we will have a short break while we do that technical adjustment.
Recording stopped.
In the old days, the expression. All right, welcome back. Council has met in a session closed to the public under the terms of the Municipal Act for matters that may be considered in absence of the public under Section 239, Sub 2 of the Municipal Act, dealing with litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, advice subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose, and to consider information provided in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory, or a Crown agency of any of them. And I can report that, I can ask Councillor Ilger and Councillor Longo move the public recommendation that the confidential report from the legal department titled Confidential Midtown Oakville Update dated January 15th be received. And I'll now call the vote. Is there any objection to that motion? Mr. Clerk, there being none, that is carried. And seconds ago, I had a little scrap of paper here. I was going to. Here we go. I can announce that the council meeting on Monday, January 26th, will have a presentation from staff outlining the submission by staff to the TOC in response to what we're calling TOC Proposal Number 2. And I believe they will also discuss what they submitted as a bonus to the ERO request for commentary on the non-obligatory posting to the ERO of the proposal to issue 4 ministerial zoning orders for the 4 district land sites that are being shepherded through by the TOC authority in the at Infrastructure Ontario. And then finally, I will say I continue to be hopeful for improvement from the TOC authority. And I think that's all I'm allowed to say. Now, new business? Anyone? Anybody want to congratulate me on how much I just said? Well, new businesses are for congratulatory stuff, notices of motion, and so on. Are there any requests for reports? All right.
Just 5 bylaws now.
Well, now, we have some bylaws to pass, and as presented in your agenda, we're not asking for authority to pass bylaw 2026-09 because we've deferred that for a cycle. So this is for the balance of them. 2026, 1, 2, 3, and not 10 either, because we deferred that. Or wait, this is.
No, that's right.
That's
14.
But we're also doing 14. And 11, which is the confirmatory bylaw. So are we all clear on what we're doing and not doing? Good. I need a mover and seconder for the bylaws. Councillor Lischina and Councillor Shia, thank you. Is there any objection? Mr. Clerk, I see no objection, and so the bylaws have been considered, read, and passed. And that, allows me to say that we have completed the work of this meeting, albeit only 45 minutes longer than the hour, or is it only 15 minutes past the hour? It's 15 minutes past the hour, which is good going, guys. And as always, it's been great working with you, and I look forward to the next opportunity. Good night.
Recording stopped.